Connected to
Oh, come on, Stan. What's up, guys? Good morning. Yo. My man Art, what's good, bro? I ate dinner and fell asleep on your ass, boy. I ain't even gonna lie. Bow. That's how big I'm getting, boy. I'm busting out my shirts, literally. That's crazy. Yo, good morning. Literally busting out my clothes. What's good, guys?
Everything around me, 2 block 9. Any motherfucker whispering about mine. And Brooklyn style, violent.
I don't know what happened to my music. Yo, MJ. Yeah, I was, that's why I'm streaming kind of late. So I did I added another video to my Patreon. I did a 37-minute video for Patreon. Just added that up there. And I was in here for about 2 hours just now, just trying to tighten up that piece. It's been basically done for a while, and like I say, I sat here for about 2 hours and just touched it here and touched it there, and YouTube won't run without Google Play services, which are currently updating. Okay. So basically what you're telling me is I got to wait. It's nice. Nice, YouTube. It's totally legit, right? Yeah, I had my girl ordered some cheesesteaks, and had a chicken cheesesteak and some lobster bisque soup. Yo, that soup had my stomach bubbling, bro. Dude, I couldn't get to sleep. I went to bed like about 8 something. I woke up about 2 o'clock this morning with some crazy heartburn. Yo, I was like, oh my god. Well, I thought I was gonna die. Really? The Patreon link is on my IG, or is it? I thought my YouTube was on my IG. I forgot what I put on there. But it's weird. Like, a lot of people say they can't go to my Patreon unless I send them the link. It's kind of weird. But it should be listed as public. You know, it's a public page. I don't know why it's so hard to find. Oh yeah, so while I wasn't sleeping this morning, I did come in here and I tightened up the red and white lines. So all those are wet right now. And what else I did? Oh, I did the 30-minute drawing. I worked on these lines. Got that other painting finished. I did a lot of stuff today already. It ain't but 10 o'clock. 10:30. So I want to drop the easel and just go ahead and start adding like some final highlights to their face, getting their tones a little crisper. Add some more highlights to the arm and to the watch, or his bracelet rather. And then gonna start adding some tattoos. He's wearing a necklace here. Need to put that necklace in there, some tattoos, and then detail the gun. So a couple more days on this, yo, and this piece will be done. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even do that, bro. I really did. that's crazy, bro. Let me drop this down. Oh, this piece coming out hard, right? What we doing today, man? Saturday. Yo, Art, you got a... What kind of truck you got, man? I keep thinking about trying to find a Tahoe, man. I might go look at this Tahoe today. I need something bigger to move my art. I keep thinking they two options. Oh, okay. I got two. But I was thinking about just like trading my truck in and getting a bigger SUV and getting a bigger SUV, or trading my car in and just getting a van. And vans are cool, you know. But I'm definitely in the market for something bigger, yo. It's getting harder and harder for me to transport my art when it's time for me to do shows and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like bring like 5 pieces, and I'm like, well, my paintings are kind of big, especially when I try to go buy canvases and stuff. And like I want to get bigger canvases, but they can't fit in my truck, so I got to do something. Even thinking about like just buying rolls of canvas. But then if you buy a roll of canvas, yeah, you can fit a big canvas in your truck because it's rolled up. But then once you paint it, you got to stretch it out. Yeah, and that's what I keep thinking too, man. Like, because the Equinox gets like 16 miles city, like 21 highway or something like that. Leases, yeah, I've never leased a vehicle, so I'd probably just buy something, an old used junk. If I can find something with some decent miles that somebody ain't beat the hell up. I need something there to get at least goddamn 13 miles in the city or something. So the big trucks, man, you can't get 10 miles to the gallon. Like, Jesus. That's why I like that little Equinox, man. That shit good on gas. I drive that shit every day and fill it up like probably like once a week, or sometimes I can go longer than a week without filling my tank up. But that's what I said. I was thinking about getting a van, like an Odyssey or some shit like that, and just take the back seats out and use that to transport my art. man. Boozy, what it do? What up, what up? Oh man, but I started playing that Grand Theft Auto yesterday. Jeez. I was on that shit for about 3 hours. But I played that shit about 3 hours straight yesterday. But that's the only way that game is real fun, yo, is when you got enough time to, like, you got to sit there and put some hours in on it. Yeah, that's the only thing about maintenance, yo. But then that's why you gotta buy like beast mobiles. You know what I'm saying? You gotta buy an automobile that you already know a beast. Like Chevy. They're known, man. Chevy's gonna run. Honda, Toyota, they gonna run. You know, Lexus basically Toyota. That shit gonna run. You know what I'm saying? I seen some what that was, the big Lexus truck. It's like the GXL or something like that. Man, them trucks be having 280,000 miles, 310 miles. Just like the Tahoes, man. Some of the Tahoes be having like 300,000 miles on it. Still be going, bro. That goddamn shit. My vehicles, all them shits got over 100. My Monte Carlo got 130. My Monte Carlo got like 134 on it. The Beastmobile parts expensive. Yeah, that's true too. That is true too. As long as it's domestic though. You know what I'm saying? As long as you don't get no motherfucking big ass Mercedes or some big ass BMW or some shit like that. I say I only fuck with used cars. I've never had a new car. Never a new car off the lot. Like the newest car I had was in 2005. I had a 2003 Lincoln. I had the Lincoln LS with the V8. But that shit was not. But that V8, but that shit was a gas guzzler. And yo, but that Lincoln, the LS was a nice ass fucking whip though. I used to smash the hell out that car, yo. Ooh, ooh. She had 160 on the dash too. That's the newest vehicle I ever had. Was like a car that was like 2 years old. Other than that, my shit used to be like 10 years old. But hell, like I had my Equinox for like 3 years now. It's '06. I ain't had to do nothing to it. Nothing. Put some tires on there and change the oil and fluids when they need to be changed, and that's it. The same thing with my Monte Carlo. My Monte Carlo old as hell. That shit is '98. I had that shit like 5 years. And it still only got like 131 miles on it. And I put some shocks on it. I put some front shocks on it and tires and just keep the oil change. I don't do nothing. Shit, ain't nothing major. I ain't had to change no radiator, no goddamn compressors, manifolds, or none of that shit, yo. Them Chevys, boy. I fuck with a Chevy. Who the fuck? Salt Bay is back with some more shit.
Mostly blocked. Oh, interesting move. Look at the style.
Yo. A fucking fake line.
residual blood. Look at this beautiful elbow. Turned it over perfectly. High kick, spinning kick. Tavares touched just underneath. Look at it here. Nice head kick, mostly blocked. Spinning shot. He is throwing everything with confidence. Very quickly to keep the fingers closed of Adesanya. Body kick. Nice. Tavares. Hamstring. Good knee. Another knee fired by Adesanya. Oh, big elbow on the spin. I will tell guys, keep your heads up. You have to see if you're striking. Oh, big blow. Back from Tavares. And a knee to follow. And another one. Follows it up with a kick. Tavares is going to load up the counter shot if he can. Beautiful kick. Staying calm.
Yo, this motherfucker is crazy. Yo, undefeated, yo. Yo, that fuck got some crazy ass moves, yo. How he kept coming around doing a spinning elbow. Dang. So me and D1 was talking last night. What you call the guy fight coming up? Heavyweight boxer. Deontay Wilder. I might try to check out some highlights from that shit. Jim Fells. Alright. Come on. Come on. Swipe down, bitch. Swipe down.
Connected to iPhone.
Yo, what up, what up? Oh, just chilling. I don't know. I just posted that picture I did, so I'm looking at a lot of comments and stuff. That's all. My bad, guys. People say the nicest stuff about my art. So amazing. Really? You gonna do it like that? Just do it like that? Dang. That thing just fell on the floor by itself.
Customized insurance won't get you fantasy points, but it will save you.
Hey. Hey. Yo, this be right here. Go hard as fuck, yo. This is a commission piece I'm working on. You know what that means? I'm getting paid. Oh, getting paid. Getting paid. Getting paid. Getting paid. Getting paid. Getting paid. Boy getting paid off his art. Now they know better. They know we don't do no commercials. I don't even know why they try to play us with that commercial just now.
Liberty Mutual Insurance. 1 part customized, 2 parts savings. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
See what I can do with that. I'm gonna wind up putting some blue on there probably. me show y'all what I'm gonna get, yo. There's an artist I know who paints with one of these, and I've seen something like this. See, that's something too that I was thinking I can just make my own.
Thank you for visiting the Parallel Palette Kickstarter site. I'd like to introduce some of the features of the Parallel Palette, as well as introduce you to who we are. My friend Dave Lemire and myself, David Casson. I'm a painter, and Dave's also a painter and a jack of all trades.
Yeah, I've been building stuff as long as I can remember. This was kind of a natural fit with Dave's ability to paint and my ability to make things. It was a good team, and we're excited about this new project, the Parallel Palette.
I couldn't hold this palette for very long. I was painting basically 6 to 9 hours a day. Once I put the painting and the palette next to each other, I actually found a lot of benefits, such as the painting is in the same light as the palette when you're mixing. When your palette is in front of you, you have your shadow that casts on it, you have the glare from the lights that are on it. So by putting the painting and the palette next to each other, there's almost seamlessness to it. You can look across the model and you can pick, and you're just moving your eyes. So you're not stressing out your back or your side or anything. So people always say about the vertical palette, like, how does the paint stay on the palette? Is it going to slide down? Is it going to fall off? With this palette, sometimes you do have paint that slides off. So what we built into the palette is 2 rows of ledges, which is going to help catch that paint. We also added a textured surface to the actual entire face of the palette, so that the paint will actually have something to adhere to.
As an example, this is one of the earlier iterations, and you can see how much slide there is actually in the paint. I mean, this is, what, 3 years, 4 years?
I've been using this palette for about 3 years now.
Right.
This was the first Parallel palette that I developed with Steve Erickson, and we actually included some of the same features, but we wanted to improve upon them. So now we actually have a mixing tray that literally just lifts off out of the space, so you can clean it at any time. I've taken old masters paintings and put them behind there like Rembrandt, and underneath the plastic you can actually do color matches with what the reference is.
Anything that you could mount the camera to, you can mount the palette to.
We also built in a ledge on the palette that actually can hold your mixing cups.
It also is able to hold your brushes.
So we've been adding a lot of these different things. We added rubber stoppers as well to the bottom of the palette, so that if you didn't want to use it vertically, you could actually put it on a table and use it as well, and it would sit flat, as well as stacking on top of the cover. Now the cover is a pretty great innovation that we've been working on, so that you can actually take the palette with you and you can turn it into a travel palette. We're going to do a pre-sale first. You can purchase it at parallelpalette.com.
Thanks for supporting Dave and my idea and our dream to bring this palette to market. And we hope that it helps you in your painting journeys just as it's helping us right now.
What do you guys think about that? The Parallel palette.
Awesome, I think we're done.
Jazz hands.
Thank you.
think I might have to get that, yeah. Looks like a pretty decent product. Oh no, did I just do that? I think I did. I think I did.
They say, how is it possible that you can win real money completely free? There's a winner every 1 to 2 minutes, which is unbelievable, where no other app can say that. No one else gives that much money away that quickly.
Joshua, very excellent idea.
Yes.
Glad to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thank
Joshua Javahari joining us there.
Also, just swiping on my phone. That's easy. All of a sudden, like, I had won 500, and I was like, whoa. Like, it was shocking.
It's a fascinating time to be a person. It really is. So interesting right now.
It's a good time.
Oh, yeah, it's a great time.
Also a rough time.
Wow.
With all the mass shooters. And
that's fucked
crazy.
up part.
Especially in Tarzan, or in Thousand Oaks.
How
that
is
was a safe-ass place.
Yeah, how is that?
And a former Marine.
How about a dude that was in the Las Vegas shooting as a survivor, was a survivor in the Thousand Oaks shooting?
You know,
what are the fucking odds of that? Same year?
Insane.
Think about the odds of that. That's why I was talking about. Girl. Think about the. I think there was someone who was in the Vegas shooting who survived that. Who was at this one that died, right?
Was there?
I think so. Either way, it's dark shit.
Oh.
Yeah. They don't have no idea his motive or anything, right?
The cops that investigated him. They investigated him fairly recently because they thought he was unstable or something like that. I think his mom called the cops. Like somebody called the cops on him, and they investigated him, talked to him.
That's always tough if you're an FBI. Like, what do you want us to do? Arrest him for being fucking weird? Like, he didn't threaten us. Like, what can we do?
For everyone that does this,
can't trail the guy nonstop.
100,000 that don't. You know, I mean, you got to figure out what the fuck is it that allows people to decide to hit that switch. Like, I don't know if they understand that. Like, what's the psychological motivation of that? But it's got to be a sign that there's something wrong with our culture if it's popping up so often. It's got to be a sign that there's something wrong.
Obviously, they always chalk it up to mental health, and all right, yeah, he's 100%. But you know how many people have mental health issues, and none of them are going to blow people up or shoot people?
There's different kinds of mental health issues.
But there's also just bad people.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to chalk it up to that, too.
That's true, too. But you know, a lot of bad people, like a giant number, have had horrible things happen.
Yeah.
That's where it gets weird. Because it's like, okay, what made this guy become who... You definitely should arrest someone who does evil shit, right? But what makes a person get to a point where they can do evil shit? There's a whole series of events probably take place, including abuse, physical abuse, maybe sexual abuse.
And then sometimes there's not. Sometimes you just get a bad apple. Like with Jeffrey Dahmer, it's like his parents are like...
Yeah,
I mean,
you definitely can
get some weird shit with his mom, but still.
You know how some people are born, they have problems with their liver.
Yeah.
Some people are born, they have problems with their brain. Yeah. That's just a fact. We know that. There's problems with the eyesight. There's problems with, you know, people are born deaf.
Yeah.
There's errors in the human body sometimes. You don't think that someone could be born just completely squirrely, wired wrong. Of course they can.
Sociopath.
Just only makes sense. I'm not a doctor, obviously. I'm a fucking moron. But I bet a doctor would agree that when you're dealing with mental health issues, you're probably dealing with this giant spectrum of them.
What if there's something we could check so that, like, when they're a baby, you could check and there's something in the DNA?
That's called eugenics.
But and they're like, he's going to be a bad kid. Do we just...
That's called eugenics.
But how do you know he's going to be a bad... Why? How many people...
Based on the symmetry of your face.
But how many people want to be a better person and they don't ever get it together? And how many people are lacking, like, some sort of coaching or lacking some
Inspiration,
positive, inspiration, positive people in their life, and then their life spirals further and further downhill. How many people are on the border?
God, the majority, right?
Yes, because I think people change and I think people improve as they grow older and as they become wiser and they have more experiences.
But also, if you look at the mass shooters, a lot of them are quote unquote losers. They live within their parents' basement. They don't have anything going on. A lot of them look like shit. Usually, they're always white, and they're always white. Low energy, always white. Parents' basement. They don't have anything going on.
A lot of proof. Positive people in their life.
But I met Bo. What up? But they about to make the whole argument that I've already made that, like, why are these all-white shooters doing this crazy? Because they're losers. In the system, in the world, in the country, in the nation, where everything is built for you, specifically for a white man. Your history, everything that you go through your whole educational career learning is to make you feel good about yourself, to remind you that you conquered the world and that Jesus is white and Santa Claus is white and everything that is white is good and any other thing is bad. And that's the structure. It is made for white men to excel and to achieve. And then when you are a loser in a system that was made specifically for you, that has to be, I couldn't even imagine how psychologically damning that is. When you know you have the privilege and you know that you should be able to become whatever and you still can't do it. It has to be the most traumatic realization. And then it's the love of the gun. So when these losers realize that they are losers and they're probably going to be losers forever in the system that's made for them, they turn to the next best thing that the system has ever created is the gun. And sometimes they're not even losers. Sometimes they feel like they're losing power. They understand that they're in control, that their group is in control, and they're losing power. And so they go kill all the Jews or shoot all the gays, and it's like that's not gonna change anything. But I don't know. It seems like they're trying to build that argument, but I hear it coming. And this is why I would listen to Joe Rogan. I don't agree with him all the time, but I do agree with Joe and some of his guests most of the time. Because they really try to think things through logically, and they don't hold back punches, you know? But they still have their own personal beliefs and opinions, and sometimes I disagree with those. But there's a lot of facts, and Joe Rogan likes facts. Like he says, I'm a fucking moron. I gotta know the facts. Just tell me how it works.
Like this, he's gonna be a bad kid. Do we just?
That's called each other.
But how do you know he's gonna be a bad? Why? How many people?
Based on the symmetry of your face.
But how many people want to be a better person and they don't ever get it together? And how many people are lacking like some sort of coaching? Or lacking some
inspiration,
inspiration, positive people in their life, and then their life spirals further and further downhill. How many people are on the border?
God, the majority, right?
Yes, because I think people change and I think people improve as they grow older and as they become wiser and they have more experiences.
But also, if you look at the mass shooters, a lot of them are quote unquote losers. They live within their parents' basement. They don't have anything going on. A lot of them look like shit. Usually, they're always white, and they're always white. Low energy, always white. Low energy.
Sometimes not low energy. This guy didn't seem low energy.
You know, the Nazis made propaganda films. Basically, they made people believe that mentally deranged people were out on the streets attacking and killing people, and they made propaganda film so that they would okay killing someone who was, you know, mentally deranged. Yeah.
You always have to be careful of people trying to label someone as someone that you don't have to consider a regular human. someone who you could disregard.
That's what they do with the Jews, right? They're like, they're rats, they're stealing from us, they're monsters. That's what they do.
People have done that throughout history to other people. There's like a scientific term for it. I don't remember what it is. But
eugenics.
Damn, I wish
no, that's not what I'm saying. There's a
it.
scientific term for people that demonize other groups of people. And the way they look at
propagandists?
No. The way you look at people, like this is a person, and you looked at the enemy, you would look at them like a subhuman. There's a psychological, it is definitely racist, but there's like a trait that people, like there's like a pattern that people commonly fall into with that.
I think it's a common word too.
The enemy.
We're all stupid in here.
We're all stupid. But dehumanizing the enemy, then it's a natural thing that people do. It's fucking, everyone does it. It's so weird. And it's how people can do gang warfare. It's how people can do tribal warfare. It's how people can do intercontinental warfare.
Where you had your boy, what's his name, the English cat, the hypnotizer?
Darren Brown.
Darren Brown.
Yeah.
Have you seen his thing on Netflix?
No.
It's fucking sick. And so it's no spoiler alert, but so he took a guy, like he took a ton of people, took a guy who lives in Florida who's in construction, and it was super kind of racist towards immigrants like Mexicans and Hispanics, and he sat him down because he thought he was the perfect one for sure. Took his phone off, bro.
Damn it. What in the fuck?
Yeah.
And so when I first saw, I started my career as a hypnotist, and I saw this guy performing at university, and I just thought I'm gonna do that. And I didn't realize at the time all these boxes that it was ticking. Performing, that sort of need for affirmation and love and center of attention, and also the control aspect of it. The kind of the control aspect, and also the kind of people, particularly the sort of guys that would respond well to hypnosis and come up on stage and and respond well to it, tended to be exactly the kind of guys that would have really intimidated me before. So that was like at an unconscious level, and I hope I've grown out of that now mainly. But it ticked a lot of boxes. So that's how I started. And I was definitely driven by insecurity, because any sort of magic, which sort of followed for me on from the hypnosis, it is the quickest, most fraudulent route to impressing people. That's the subtext is only look at me, aren't I great, which is not that interesting after a while. So I've tried to as I've grown up, I've tried to move it into a different area, and one that's a little more resonant than just showing off.
That's fascinating that you started out doing a hypnosis show. Was it a comedy show?
No, it was sort of I would mainly perform at colleges, and I'd do a demonstration and then have questions and answers afterwards. And I wasn't making people look stupid. It was an entertainment show, and I guess it was kind of funny, but it's just a really interesting thing. And the trouble with doing it on stage is, of course, it gets mixed up with people just kind of playing along and stuff. So but if you take that out of it, it's just a really interesting area. And I've done this stuff for 20 years back home. And I don't think of myself as a hypnotist. That was just kind of where I started. But the suggestion-based techniques of that is something I've continued with and brought into different areas, and I still don't fully understand it. Now you can never quite climb inside someone's head and know what they're experiencing. Like I used to do when I used to do these stage hypnosis shows. The last thing I did was I'd tell these people on stage that I was invisible, right, and I'd float something through the air, right, like this bottle I've got here. And it's normally something bigger, like a chair. And they'd be freaking out, running off stage and so on. But afterwards, when I'd have this kind of Q&A, I'd ask them, well, what was your actual experience like? Like, the show's over now, be honest, what were you experiencing? And you'd get some people that would say, well, yeah, you were obviously just floating that, you were just holding it, but I kind of felt like I had to play along. And then you get this interesting area in the middle of like, well, now when I think back, yes, of course it was you, but I sort of knew it was you, but I emotionally just completely, I could only experience it as a terrifying floating bottle or whatever it was. So that's a bit like an actor, like getting caught up in a role, I guess. Like they know they're on stage and it's a character, but nonetheless emotionally committed. And at the other extreme, people that would not accept that it was me floating it. That must have been on a wire or something. There's no way that I can drop you back in the picture in my memory of that thing. So how do you judge what that experience is? And are those people that are saying, no, you were really invisible, are they just saying that because they want to be like the best subjects in that group? I mean,
right.
how do you tease it all apart?
That must be a real issue, right? The people that just want to please you and are playing along. Can you tell if you were hypnotizing people?
I can tell, but the way I use it now is I use it quite sort of subtly in the show. I don't like overtly, hypnotize people. So that means, it can mean one of two things. It either means it just, I'm not interested in people playing along because I'm not just trying to create the effect of someone hypnotized. They need to genuinely be responding to this thing in order for the next bit to work. In which case I have to filter out anybody playing along. But occasionally it doesn't matter. Like a lot of the time, like I'll get people up on stage and I'll shake their hand and there's a rapid handshake induction that the guy just falls to the floor. And there are times that matters and that has to be a really honest response. Other times I can tell they're sort of half into it and they're just a bit intimidated. But for the 2,000 people looking, it might look like the same thing, and then it won't matter.
How does that work?
The handshake induction. Yeah. Well, it's a. I take no responsibility for explaining this to your tens of millions of listeners and viewers. But it's you're interrupting an automatic process, right? This is the key to it. It was made popular by. I guess, Richard Bandler, who's the guy behind NLP and so on. I don't know if he kind of created this thing, but perhaps Erickson did before him. I don't know. Anyway, you take an automatic process and you interrupt it in the middle. So like when you're shaking hands with somebody, that's such a familiar process that when you start, you're not thinking, okay, I'm going to grip this person's hand now, and I'm going to move my hand up and down with them a few times, then I'll take my hand away. You just kind of do it automatically. And there's something about interrupting that leaves people really flummoxed and bewildered because they're really caught off guard. Like if you imagine somebody comes up to you in the street and says, it's not 7:30. Your reaction isn't to go, yeah, I know, it's 9:20. Your reaction is a sort of, you think like you've missed something, like you're trying to make sense of it. It's a strange, kind of puts you on the back foot. And at that point, if you've got somebody who's fairly suggestible, and people coming up on stage, it's such an odd moment for them anyway, they're naturally very suggestible, that a clear instruction to sleep, or whatever you want to give them, tends to be taken very deeply, and very often then you'll see, I'll shake hands and I'll break the pattern of the handshake, so I'll often take their hand and lift it up to their face and say, sleep, and show them their hand like that.
And they just sleep?
And well, it's not sleep, but it's a kind of, it looks like, I mean, they'll do anything from eyes closed, head drops down, to just drop like a dead weight on the floor. You know what I found this most interesting, actually, was like applying this in slightly more useful everyday situations, was as a sort of, like a self-defense technique. I was walking between, so I was like, must have been like 20 or something, and I was at a magic convention, and I was walking from one hotel to another, and I'm dressed in like a three-piece velvet suit. I was this skinny British, like I might as well have, punch me in the throat tattooed across my face. And this guy comes up and he's drunk, it's like 3 a.m, drunk, aggressive, he's with his girlfriend, clearly looking for a fight. And he comes up to me, he says, what are you fucking looking at? What are you looking at? And because I'd spoken about this, how to deal with this sort of thing, but had never found myself in this situation, I kind of had it all mentally rehearsed. So I said to him, the wall outside my house isn't 4 foot high. And I guess there's an equivalent to this with sort of adrenaline dump, I think it's called in martial arts, but it just like, he's got all this adrenaline, and then a thing like that for me, which is just out of context. Like, it makes sense, I'm not like talking gibberish, it makes sense, but it's just out of context. Right. So now suddenly he's thinking, I've missed something. So now he went, what? And I said, and his girlfriend walked off, and I said, the wall outside my house isn't 4 foot high. I spent some time in Spain. The walls there were very high, but if you look at the ones here, they're tiny, they're nothing. And then he just sort of broke down. He sort of went, "Wah!" And
he started crying.
Well, no, it wasn't quite crying, but it was like all the adrenaline and everything just flooded out of him. And he sat down, and I ended up sitting next to him on the on the roadside, asking him. So the plan was I was going to try and stick his feet to the floor, and I had this whole plan, but he just kind of collapsed and sat down.
So I stick his feet to the floor with hypnosis?
Yeah, that was because I knew it'd be like this highly suggestible state, and like, either way, the moment of aggression had passed. But I ended up weirdly sitting with him, asking him what had happened that evening, and his girlfriend, I think she'd bottled somebody or something horrible had happened.
Oh, jeez.
So he got out with all this aggression. But it's a good one, isn't it? If you just have like it could be just a song lyric or just some weird kind of thing that you can just go into in those situations. I mean, if someone's running at you with a knife, it's a bit difficult, but you're kind of strangely taking control of a situation. Otherwise, what are you going to do? If they say, "What are you looking at?" You can't. There's no way you can answer that without being on the back foot. So it just kind of nicely kind of inverts the situation and puts them on the back foot. Which anyway, it worked. It was kind of fun.
Isn't there like a process required to hypnotize someone? You could just do it that way and just talk them through some sort of a program that makes them think their foot is stuck to the floor?
It all depends on the moment. I used to hypnotize people in my room when I was a student, right? So I was the guy that did hypnosis.
Right.
So I'd have people coming, regularly coming to try it out, and I had this one time, I used to leave people with, like, if they were responsive to it, and this was like, I was really early days, it was like, 20 minutes, half an hour of relaxing somebody and maybe suggesting that their hands were getting light and floating or heavy and they couldn't lift them, so kind of basic stuff. But I would leave them, if they were very suggestible, with the instruction that when you come back, if I click my fingers, you'll go back into the sleep state. And they kind of get conditioned to that, and it'll often work, even like a week later. And this guy came, and I thought I'd seen him before. I thought he'd been on a previous week. So he sat down and went, "Okay, look at me," and sleep, click my fingers. And he went out, whatever that means, right? And then we did whatever it was. Maybe, perhaps he wanted to stop smoking or his hands floating in the air, whatever it was. And at the end of it, I realised in talking to him that I hadn't met him before. So then I'm like, well, why did you respond to me clicking my fingers? And because I don't have magic fingers, there's nothing like anything going on here other than, and I realised it was just that moment of my kind of confidence with it, and the fact, fortuitously, that he was also very suggestible, and put those two things together, that's what made it work. It was just that psychological moment for him that was more important than the nature of the 20-minute script that I'd been learning and using up to that point. So that was that was a seminal.
So your confidence in that he had already been under.
Yeah, I didn't question it because I believed he had, and it just sort of happened, and then if he hadn't been a suggestible type, then it probably wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
But luckily he was, and that kind of really changed the way that I thought about hypnosis, and also started this realization that ultimately my kind of toolkit with what I do is the stories that people are telling themselves. That's really, all there is. Even a magician showing you a card trick is just getting you to tell yourself a story. Edit this event in such a way that you go, oh, I picked a card and then it disappeared. It was in my pocket. He never went near me. And you edit out all the bits that don't seem important, like when he complimented you on your jacket earlier on in the day and may have stuck a card in there, or the bit when he took the card back for a moment, whatever, because you don't, you're being sold a story with particular sort of edit points. And to me that's interesting, because that's what life is. We have this infinite data source coming at us, and we have to kind of reduce it to stories to make sense. So I think stripping aside all the kind of vaudeville and tacky associations of hypnotists and magicians and so on, I think there's something interesting at the heart of it. I think that our storytelling capacity is kind of endlessly fascinating to me.
Well, it's fascinating in that regard, but it's also fascinating that there seems to be like some cheat code to the human mind. Like there's a way you can like lock into like an admin panel, and all of a sudden you're doing things like telling people they don't want to be smoking, or putting them into this hypnotic mindset by just snapping your fingers and saying sleep. Like it's odd.
I don't think it is that. I think it looks like that, and that's the problem, because it's you so often see it when performers are doing it, and they're often going for a kind of theatrical effect. If you go and look at it like a clinical environment where hypnosis is being investigated, it isn't like that at all. It's much more kind of boring in a way. It doesn't have any theatre attached to it.
Right.
It's much more, kind of intuitively understandable.
Have you been hypnotized yourself?
I'm terrible. I'm a really bad subject. I had one experience where only one, when I was in like a workshop thing that I was there as a paying person. I wasn't giving the workshop, and I was sat with the exercise was it really worked for me. It may work for others. So you split into pairs, and the idea is you start to describe a scene. So I was sat with this woman. You close your eyes. You start to describe a scene, and you go back and forth adding details. Right. So she says, "Oh, okay, I'm laying on a beach." So I just imagine that. I go, "Okay, I'm laying on a beach, and I can feel the warmth of the sun on my face." So I'm just kind of like imagining it and joining in with the story. And then I just remember somebody going, "Okay, guys, time up, time for lunch." And I had been on a beach. I'd completely I'd been there like a dream. It was completely real. At some point, it had tipped into that. That's the only experience I've had of it. Other than that, I don't respond to it. I'm just not. I think it's just suggestibility. It's something about, and we get it when we get it when a doctor gives us a placebo, and we respond to that because this authority figure is giving us that, or the way we absorb opinions of people that we admire and experts that we admire, how we just more easily take those on board unquestioningly. This is all the same thing. It's just suggestion. The trouble is, most of the time it's done through the world of the performing hypnotist, which isn't giving really a very clear and fair view of what's going on.
Because it's so theatrical and so...
Yeah, because often you're relishing in things like, I clicked my fingers and this guy went to sleep.
Yeah.
But that's not really, what are they doing? Are they just kind of responding because you've just asked them to, and they know that when you click their fingers they're supposed to go to sleep? There's a real range of possible experiences that it might look like a power, but it doesn't mean it is. They might just be complying.
Yeah.
I was going to do some of this stuff on stage without using the hypnosis to show that I don't think there's anything that happens under hypnosis that can't be done without. And I was having this discussion with my friend Andy, who directs and co-writes my stage shows with me, and I was saying like that thing of when a hypnotist gets someone to eat an onion and says, this is a classic hypnotic stunt, gives them a raw onion and says, "It's a delicious juicy apple, now eat it and enjoy it." And you get somebody munching into an onion and like having no problem eating it. And I was like, I'm sure that feels like if you're just going to pull it off without hypnosis, will that just happen anyway? And Andy said, I bet you can just do it anyway. And he went to my fridge, took out an onion, took a big bite of it, and it was fine. Because he's proving a point there, right? So he's in a different mental state than somebody going, "God, I dare you to take a bite of that onion." When suddenly you're preempting the disgust and all the reasons not to do it. But the fact that he was just going, "I bet you can do it," and trying to prove a point, meant he did it, and it was fine. So that was a different mental state, and it worked. So that wasn't hypnosis,
right. But
the end result still, if you did that on stage and pretended to hypnotize somebody first, it would look like you've done something amazing. So I don't know. It's to me, it's just that story that someone's telling themselves.
Well, did it taste like an onion to him, or did it taste like an apple?
But it would have. No. It would have tasted like an onion. There was no suggestion.
But what about with the people that are hypnotized? Does it taste like an apple to them?
Well, I don't know. It's like when I'm invisible. What are they seeing?
Right.
I think for some of them it will. Taste and pain and things like that, and discomfort. It's all very subjective. But the end result of doing this thing that looks like it couldn't happen without some magical process—that's the key. And none of these things really demand that. Even when you look at people being undergoing surgery through hypnosis and being wide awake and being cut open, so you think, well, that must be evidence that hypnosis is some special thing, because that couldn't happen otherwise. But of course it can. The layer of skin that feels pain is actually sort of quite thin. So once you get through that, when you're moving organs around, that's not a painful process anyway. Plus, very often they tend to use a little bit of like a local anaesthetic anyway, just to numb the very top layer of skin. So again, what looks amazing very often isn't. It's an endlessly rich and bizarre area to me, and I kind of, as I said, I don't really think of myself as a hypnotist, but that process, that kind of ability for people to get into this space where they can have that kind of experience is something I'll always find interesting. One of the recent stage shows I did, it's called Miracle. I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm faith healing in the second half. So using exactly the same idea, and I've got an audience that are like me. They don't believe in that, and I'm saying, look, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in this either. But will you just kind of go with me, at least at the start, because the results are really interesting. And I just started doing this faith healing, not really knowing if it was going to work. I thought, well, I can get some adrenaline going, and I could see the techniques that the charlatan faith healers were using, and I thought, well, I'll do that. And I thought, well, the adrenaline kills pain, so if I get some adrenaline going, there's bound to be people that said, I had a pain in my back and now it's gone. But the actual results, admittedly with like small percentages of the audience, right, not everybody, but the people that were coming up and saying, I had this problem and now it's gone. And there was a woman that she'd been paralyzed down one side of her body since a kid, and she's like in her 40s now, she's in floods of tears, going, I can move my arm. And this is a skeptical audience like me that know that they're kind of playing along with something, and nonetheless, again, small percentage, not everybody, but having these kind of experiences. So that's a psychological component of suffering, which was really eye-opening doing that show night after night after night.
Well, faith healing has got to be a form of hypnosis, right?
Yeah, it's all this, exactly. It's the same world. It's playing, they're both joined by is the idea of suggestibility. And it doesn't, and sometimes those healings are sort of, if you take an x-ray before and afterwards, nothing's changing, but in as much as a lot can depend on this psychological component, it can really make a difference. Again, as the percentages are getting smaller, so 3,000 people in the audience, 300 people come up, 10 people come up on stage, and I'm, involving them in the show. But getting even smaller, there are people that like a year later are getting in touch and say, just so you know, that thing did actually clear, like it hasn't come back. Because I thought it would only last for 10 minutes while they're on stage, and then, which is why you don't tell people to throw their pills away and so on, right? But we're in probably like that 0.5% now, which is always going to be kind of pretty extraordinary, but it was like a real thing. So
but still, if you had 200 people and one of them actually gets cured from that, that is immensely bizarre.
It's immensely bizarre, but it's bizarre and like I had this bad shoulder for a long time, and I got really used to when I put a jacket on, kind of putting this in my left arm, putting it in, like letting my left arm go dead, and then using my right arm to pull the thing up, right? Now, I don't know how much I really need to do that anymore, or whether I'm just doing it out of habit. But if somebody got me up on stage and said, your left shoulder is healed, it's happened now, and kind of made me feel a bit, now go on, try, move your arm. I think in the surprise of it, and the sheer kind of just snapping out of that habit of being like, this is my dead arm, I probably would be very surprised that I can actually move it as much as I can. So it's like when you break it down, it's like not that amazing, but when you see the more kind of extreme and exciting ends of that, it is mind-blowing. And then you realise how these performers, how you start to go mad yourself and think, well, I've got this special gift, and I could pack out stadia doing like I did think at one point, why don't I do like a secular healing show? I could say, well, it's just, it doesn't work on everybody, and it may only work for 10 minutes, but it certainly works in some meaning of the word. Anyway, I didn't do that, but, you can start to go mad.
Well, I don't get anything. Quite honestly, I'm not being self-deprecating. I don't get the Big Bang.
Yeah.
I don't get it at all.
Well, okay, here's what somebody should tell you.
Okay.
There are two kinds of singularities when you try to solve Einstein's field equations for gravity. So gravity's a thing. Einstein tells us pretty much what we think gravity is. It's the curvature of space and time. And when we try to solve his equations, we get these black hole singularities, which are called Schwarzschild singularities. And then we get this initial singularity, which we associate back to the Big Bang with the Friedman-Walker-Robertson model. In some sense, those singularities are indications to us that we're not at the end of physics and that Einstein's equations aren't the real story. And so rather than sort of saying, they're a pretty good model up until this point, and then we kind of really don't know what happened then. We have the observational thing that we would map to the Big Bang, and then we have the model thing that we would map to the Big Bang. And to be honest with you, we're pretty sure that our models don't make sense past a point, and now we're having this conversation past the point where we're pretty sure they don't make sense. That would be much more honest to me. But because we have this desire to blow people's minds gratuitously, and everybody wants, well, how did everything begin? And where are we? And who are we? And we want to sort of answer more of that than we probably should.
That's an interesting way of putting it. That makes sense.
Like, let me give you an alternate spin on quantum mechanics. Okay? So typically people will say, you know, the mind-blowing thing about quantum mechanics is that it's probabilistic. And that is kind of mind-blowing. But if you actually say it differently, you say, look, in classical mechanics, like Newton, stuff that we feel more comfortable with, you have good questions and bad questions. Like if you and I go hang out at the beach, and I say to you, hey, where is that wave concentrated? At what point does that wave live? You look at me and say, it's a wave. It's not concentrated at a point. It's all along the shore. So as a classical physicist, you say, that's not a good question, Eric. And when I ask you a good question, like how fast is that wave front moving, you know, along this trajectory or something, you can give me an answer and it's definite. So as long as you ask a good question in classical mechanics, you get definite answers. When you go to quantum mechanics and you ask a good question, technically that means that the state vector is an observable of the Hermitian operator representing the question. Never mind. Funny thing happens, you get deterministic answers. There's no probability involved whatsoever. So if I ask a good question in quantum mechanics, I have the same property that I do when I ask a good question in classical mechanics. I get a definite answer. There's no probability. When I ask a bad question in quantum mechanics, instead of like classical mechanics says, you know, screw off. I'm not answering that. That's ridiculous. It's a bad question. Quantum mechanics says, you really want to ask me a bad question? All right. I'll give you maybe this answer and maybe that answer, and here's the probability distribution that I'll actually give you either of those two answers. And what's more, I'll even kick it into the state that you asked about. So for example, if you ask, where is that wave concentrated? So like, let's say this is my coffee cup, and I drop a little drop in the center of it. That creates a circular wave that radiates out. And I say, where is the wave concentrated? Well, at 1 second it hits the coffee mug, let's say it's a big coffee cup, and at 1 second after that, it's concentrated again in the center. So that becomes a good question only when the wave becomes reconcentrated in the center of the cup, right? But if that wave were a quantum wave, I could ask, where is the wave concentrated? And with equal probability, suddenly the wave will concentrate at some point along the circle that represents the wave. Right?
So what would your answer be then?
Well, the point would be it'll concentrate at one of these points around the circle at random with equal probability, and suddenly the wave will concentrate randomly when it's a quantum question.
So this is why quantum mechanics is so confusing. Quantum physics are so confusing to people. Well, because they hear that and they go, okay, this is confusing. Just went in my head like Jello.
Well, that's the thing. But the point of if I have a wave and I slow it down, I can look at a wave in a coffee mug.
Right.
And I can see that if I ask where is the wave concentrated, you would say it's concentrated at like half an inch out from the center of the cup. You say, no, not what ring is it concentrated on, what exact point. It's not concentrated at an exact point. But that wave in quantum mechanics, which is not concentrated at an exact point, behaves differently when I ask a bad question. So the point that I'm trying to get across is good questions have exactly the same properties in classical mechanics and quantum mechanics. There's no introduction to probability theory. The weird question is, why is quantum mechanics answering bad questions?
Well, or maybe even weirder question is, not just why, is quantum mechanics in an adolescent state of understanding? I mean, is it part of the problem that they don't know enough yet, and they're trying to like explain what they do know, what they can prove on paper, and for a person like me, like, well, what do you know? And they're like, well, we know probabilities, we know this, we know that, and a person like me who doesn't have any studying in it just goes, oh, What does that mean?
Well, that's great. So, like, let's say we were having a conversation about genetics, and we were looking only at the DNA, and we didn't see epigenetics in terms of, like, methylation patterns. Then you'd shove everything onto DNA, and maybe you had no concept of, like, development. And the model would work up to a point, would explain why you have blue eyes or brown eyes, but it wouldn't explain all sorts of other things. And so then you overdevelop that model. So I think that what you're saying is really Einstein's intuition, which is, I'm not saying, Einstein, I'm not saying that this is wrong, I'm saying this is incomplete, and then when we finally get the answer, we're going to say, oh, that's why we used to think of it in those crazy terms.
So, back to gauge theory, gauge symmetry. What the hell is that?
All right, well, here's the craziest thing.
Okay.
There is a very confusing visual image of the fundamental unit that you need to appreciate what gauge symmetry is all about. And I had Jamie load it up under the tab called Planet Hopf. And this is going to be
HOPF?
HOPF.
What the fuck am I looking at?
You are looking at the most important object in the universe.
What? That looks like some trippy screensaver on your laptop.
Take another puff, my friend, because it's worth it. This is, what you're looking at, is a principal fiber bundle.
And it's
and it is the
Earth. Those are the continents I'm looking at.
That's the cool part about it, which is, this is very confusing to figure out what you're looking at, but it's finite. In other words, if we stay for an hour or two on this and we actually answer all your questions, you will actually know what a principal bundle is, and you will know the arena in which gauge theory exists.
For folks at home that are just listening and they, well, what the fuck are these guys talking about? What is the name of this video, Jamie?
It's not a video.
It's not a video.
It's a small file on a page. I typed in Planet Hopf, and it was the first thing that showed up on math.toronto.edu.
Okay,
it's
so
an extended thing.
Planet HOPF, for anybody who wants to look at this. If you're just listening and you have no idea why I'm freaking out.
So this was done by a friend of mine named Dror Bar-Natan. I actually coded the same thing up. Strangely enough, didn't do as brilliant a job of coloring it.
This looks amazing, by the way.
So, okay, what you're looking at is a two-dimensional sphere that is the surface of the Earth, where an extra circle is included at every point on the surface of that sphere, which you're now visualizing. And that extra circle, which would be called the fiber, when you take the totality of all of those circles together, one for each point on the surface of the sphere, they create something called a three-sphere. That is all the points that are 1 unit of distance away from the origin in four-dimensional space. So that three-dimensional sphere is the analog of a two-dimensional sphere sitting in three-dimensional space. So think about a caramel apple. If you've ever made caramel apples, you get a disc of caramel, and you wrap it around the sphere that is the apple surface, right? So this is the three-dimensional version of caramel wrapped around the three-dimensional sphere sitting in four-dimensional space. Now,
do you understand any of this, Jamie?
I'm trying.
Well, it's totally true, right?
Yeah,
and so we're not going to get it completely during this session. However,
I think I lack the tools.
I don't think so. We lack the time. So the first thing is you are finding out that one of your friends thinks this is the most important object in the universe, and you've never even heard of it.
Right.
Much less know that there's one visual example.
What the fuck? How's this happening now?
I know, exactly.
It does look fucking crazy.
Well, okay. This is what was discovered in the mid-1970s as the connection between mathematics and what we call differential geometry and the discipline of particle theory. So two guys, Jim Simons, the world's most successful hedge fund manager, and C.N. Yang, a person who might arguably be the world's first or second greatest living theoretical physicist, had a lunch seminar, and they said, why don't we figure out how do we talk to each other? And what they found out is they both had developed a version of this picture. And
independently.
So it was the Rosetta Stone that unleashed a revolution. So when Lawrence Krauss was talking to you about gauge theory, he was saying things about chessboards, and you color it white and you color it black. It's super confusing to me. I would rather your people be confused about an actual example of the object on which we do gauge theory that you can visually see, right? Now, if I started to tell you what gauge theory is, it's pretty simple. So here's a description I never hear anyone say. When you're doing differential calculus, I don't know if you remember differential calculus. You're trying to figure out the slopes of lines, the instantaneous rise over the run. So that always makes sense to people. Okay, I figure out how fast it's going up versus how fast it's going across. But a question arises, which is, where do you measure the rise from? So for example, if I say, what is the height of Mount Everest? Jamie will say
35,000?
Yeah, something like that.
Something crazy like that, right?
Let's just go 1,000, say base.
Well, let's
get an internet connection.
Let's take a guess. What do you think it is?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I want to say it's 35,000. What do you think?
I thought it was 29.
29,029.
No.
Okay.
What's the highest? What's the highest one?
30.
Is it K2?
All right. K2 is second, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
Is Everest the highest?
Yeah. But okay, so Everest. So 29, what did you say? 29?
29,029.
029. Above what?
Sea level?
Okay. Where is Mount Everest located?
The Himalayas.
What's sea?
There's no ocean there, so.
Right. So, like we snuck in, it's above sea level, and there's no ocean.
So we start from the center of the Earth.
We have this structure called the geoid, which is the interpolation of sea level, as if the Earth was only ocean and there was no tide.
Right, and as if there's some sort of a...
So we snuck in the reference level. That's my point, is that we teach these kids to repeat why it's 29,000 and change above sea level, and there's no sea.
Right.
So that reference level is the magic of gauge theory, right? Which is that we measure the rise over the run based on a custom level.
So a level that we all agree upon.
So for example, let's imagine that you and I are in some country experiencing hyperinflation, right? And I'm your boss. And you say, dude, I need a raise. I say, well, look, I've told you I would hire you for, 10,000 dinars a month. And you say, yeah. I said, well, your salary is constant. I took the derivative of it. I've paid you 10,000 last month, 10,000 this month. So you're getting the same amount. Derivative equals 0. It's constant salary. Now you have to come back at me in calculus. And you say, no, I don't like your notion of the derivative, because what you're doing is you're measuring the absolute number of dinars that you're paying me. But what I want to do is I want to measure it in purchasing power, because I'm losing money every month that you don't increase my salary. So I now come up with a version of the calculus in which my salary is not constant because it's being measured relative to purchasing power rather than absolute units. That's gauge theory. Is that you're bringing in a reference level that does the differentiation. So you're measuring rise over run by customizing the problem. So these were two different applications of the calculus. The cheating employer says, I want to go with constant dinars. The gifted employee says, not so fast. I know gauge theory. I'm going to use a custom reference level, which is purchasing power. Right? So it's like sneaking the geoid into Tibet to measure Everest. I've got my custom level.
Does this make sense to you?
Yes.
It makes sense, right? Yes. But now explain it. Say what he said.
We would need a new reference of what you want to measure, like a new conversation to have like a flat level.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah. It would be really difficult for me to recall a day from now.
Maybe.
Lay off the weed.
No, it's not the weed.
That might help.
It's no, weed might help.
Yeah, it might recall that.
Might pop a mushroom cap, see what's up. It's still in reference to quantum physics, like how you would use gauge symmetry.
Well, but let's look at some more cool stuff with the visual cortex, because everything that we can do visually should inform what we can do linguistically. So you should push everything into the visual realm that you can.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I just showed you the Hopf vibration, which is the only, in some sense, the only mature picture I can show you of a principal vibration in geometry or physics that is honest and has the full complexity. It's got a certain kind of knottedness to it. It's got something that we would call curvature, and it is visualizable. And so it would be better that we spent, a day or two on this most important object, which we think reality is based around, and that you visually got comfortable with it. And then you said, okay, now tell me again what gauge symmetry is. And then instead of Lawrence talking about this chessboard and the colors and all this stuff by analogy, you'd actually be seeing gauge theory visually. Like I could program a computer, and have done so, to show you visually what a gauge theory is. And it'll take some time to sort of understand what the trippy pictures are. But let's bring up the Escher staircase. And Jamie has a nice wrinkle on this, that instead of using MC Escher's staircase, he's got this animated guy who just keeps going down. All right. Now, what's going on with those stairs? Now, those stairs are sort of an optical illusion because obviously it can't just keep going down. But then you build these systems like rock, paper, scissors. What's the best thing to throw in rock, paper, scissors?
Well, it depends on what you throw.
Well, but we should be able to agree that rock is better than scissors.
Rock is better than scissors, but paper is better than rock.
Right, so you go around that thing, and now the point is that you get to rock is much better than rock, right? And that seems crazy. Now that concept would be what we would call holonomy. The weird sentence, rock is better than rock because of that going around the loop.
Why rock is better than rock? I don't get it.
Rock is better than scissors. Scissors is better than paper.
Right.
Paper is better than rock. So by transitivity, rock is therefore better than rock because you went around the loop and came back to rock.
It's like MMA math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you're changing currencies and you don't spend any of it because you keep using your credit card, by the time you come home you have more money than when you left because the exchange rates did some thing so that when you changed into each currency you somehow got richer.
But by saying rock is better than rock, you're denying the fact they're exactly the same.
Well, no,
you're not addressing it. You just want to continue the same.
That's the linguistic fallacy, right? So the idea that this system here, so those stairs in gauge theory would be these reference levels for the derivative.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have situations where the reference levels don't knit flatly together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so by virtue of that, we would say that this system has curvature. Curvature is the Escherness of these better than transitive statements.
What we're looking at, folks, for people who are just listening, we're looking at, if you've never seen those Escher etches, those sketches, they're very strange because what there are is a bunch of staircases that appear to always be going downhill, even if one of them is above the other one. It's very strange.
Very strange.
And this one, we're watching an animated guy roll down this staircase constantly, even though it really looks like somehow or another it must go up somewhere, but you don't ever see it going up. But it's also a factor of the illusion of perspective and how it's drawn and playing games with lines.
Exactly. But if you do this very weird experiment, which we didn't know about until the late 50s, called the Aronoff-Bohm experiment, if you run electric current through a wire that's insulated, it appears not to have any electromagnetic field outside of the insulation. However, if you do some sort of quantum interference experiment, you can tell that there's current going through because it affects the phase shift, let's say, of an electron orbiting that insulated electromagnetic system. So nobody thought that was going to happen because they thought, well, an insulator would we thought the electromagnetic field is what determines the shift in the electron. But it's insulated, so there is no electromagnetic field to worry about. It turned out that it wasn't the electromagnetic field alone. It was some previous geometric concept, which was called the electromagnetic potential, that determined something about the phase shift. So this Escher staircase, in the case of electromagnetism, it's like the photons are the analog of those steps. They're partially what determine the derivative operators, these reference levels, and again, in our discussion of the am I paying you the right amount in a hyperinflationary economy? So all of these things, you're trying to figure out, well, that's an optical illusion, but that effect actually occurs in some systems, not as an optical illusion. Yes, right? So this weirdness requires a fair amount in terms of either study of math or learning visualizations. But there's no way to achieve it in my experience with linguistic communications. Like all the stuff that gets said about, universes expanding, or let me tell you what a gauge theory is and what. There's a reason it's confusing. It's because it doesn't make any effing sense.
Right. I see what you're saying. Sort.
I gotta eat something, man. Yeah, I got started streaming late. It's already lunchtime.
Expecting our first child, and you gave me some baby name advice. Yeah. What did I say? You said the key to naming a kid is to give them a bunch of middle names, so that if they don't like their first name, they have options. That's just a theory. I don't have any kids, man. Calling in to have a horrible shark costume. I don't want to have a fancy shark costume because I want people to be able to relate to me. Yeah, I like it. And they're like, oh, I can't relate to Hannibal. Look how fancy his shark costume is. And so I get shark costumes that regular people can get, Now, it's like millionaires that drive Priuses. Yeah. That's a garbage car.
May I ask you to just answer very honestly? I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
When they said, hey, we've got a movie about adults playing tag, what was your initial reaction?
How much does it pay? Just presenting an award for the NBA, right? Yeah, they did their own awards, so the NBA Players Association did the Players Awards, and they didn't have good awards. All the awards were the same awards. Well, they weren't the same awards, but they were the same people. It was like best player, and it was player you secretly want on your team. It's like, that's the same dudes. Right. You want the best dude on your team. Yeah. What did you do that got the founder of Tinder upset? What did you say? I said what Tinder was. Was people like to use it to have location-based sex. Yeah. And they're like, no, it's more than that. I'm sure people have gotten married or had long-term relationships from Tinder, but a lot of people have just had some strange. Mike Dunleavy. Mike Dunleavy. Mike Dunleavy. Mike.
This is so good.
Yeah. You look at the camera and say, Mike Dunleavy is better than Michael Jordan.
Mike Dunleavy is better than Jordan.
I eat absolutely no animal products.
Animals think other animals are delicious, so why shouldn't I think that they're delicious?
No, pigs are smarter than dogs.
That's why it tastes great.
So you were invited to the Hollywood premiere
of Spider-Man, but I was filming Tag, and I couldn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still wanted to be a part of the premiere, so I
hired
somebody to go for me.
You put this tweet up, and the tweet says, LA, I need a lookalike with solid comedic timing for an event tonight. Pay $500.
You could be reincarnated as any animal, what would you be?
I'd probably choose a wolf.
Well, if you were a wolf, you'll be eating sheep.
Nope, I'd probably make friends with the baby wolf.
So you're saying you'll be like a vegan wolf?
I'd probably be a vegan wolf, yeah.
All right. So he goes to the premiere as you.
I send him the credentials, I email him, and I tell him who to ask for when he gets there, and they let him on.
Here with Hannibal Parris. So tell me, what's it like to be part of such an incredibly huge universe like this?
You know, it was a great opportunity. I had a lot of fun. Spider-Man is huge. You know, we grow up watching Spider-Man. So to play Coach Wilson, working with the cast, this is a great time. I had a blast, and I wouldn't trade for nothing in the world.
Inside Edition went to this man's house the day after. Like, where was Hannibal? Why couldn't he make it? And why are you here, Inside Edition? Why are you taking this so? Why y'all tripping about me not showing up to the Spider-Man premiere? When this is a movie about a man that's also a spider. But now I'm crazy for sending somebody else to that when you're making several movies about a Spider-Man? All right. Why am I even doing this? There's no chance they're going to give me this show to a black dude. Why am I all this? I fell asleep one time. I was waiting for the subway in New York, and I fell asleep. I was wearing a hat, and I wake up, and there's a dude sitting 2 seats away from me, but he was wearing my hat.
That's New York.
And I said, I wake up, I said, hey man, that's my hat, give me my hat. And he's like, you gave me the hat. I really had to promote my new book, My First Numbers. This is my new book right here, My First Numbers. Yeah, this is my new book. Yeah, this is my new book. It's counting as 1 sock and 2 shoes. Got 3 whistles, 4 backpacks, and 5 flags, and 6 bottles right there. And, what are you eating now? I have popcorn. You got good snacks back there. Seven logos, and 8 footballs, and 9 bottles of juice, and 10 clocks, and then logos again, 11 logos.
Why have you got this book here?
12 slices, not whole oranges. I thought that was weird. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Ouch.
Achoo. Okay.
And 13 trophies, 14 sandwiches, and 15 medals. Then got part 2 coming up soon. 16 through 30, part 2. Check it out. My First Numbers book. Australia, get it everywhere. Books and up.
It tastes so good. Is a palate more important than the life of a sentient being being
Yes,
born?
yes.
Then you're not someone I would ever have as a friend.
And I probably wouldn't want to spend time with you either, because you'd be like, why are you eating that? I had to throw a party, and the woman that I rented it from, she said I couldn't throw parties, but I said, nah, I got to throw a party. And I didn't know that she had cameras, so she's calling me. She says, how many people are there?
Oh wait, it's live streaming?
Yeah!
So she's calling you while the party's happening.
She's calling me while the party's happening, and I'm lying. She said, how many people are there? I was like, it's 12. There really is about 50 people there. Put the camera on.
Oh, it's been on.
Hey, it's me. What's up? This cop. He's stupid. Hey, what's happening? Hey, what's up? It's me, Animal Birds. This cop stupid as fuck. Hey, put this camera on.
Get out of here before you.
Hey, what's up?
Get out of
YouTube.
here. Alright, put your hands behind your back.
For what?
Are you resisting them?
What's the charge?
Put your hands behind your back.
What's the charge?
I'll let you know what you put your hands
I'm
behind.
goofy as fuck.
Okay.
You know you goofy as fuck,
Okay,
right?
yeah, that's fine.
You know you goofy as fuck, right?
Go.
I don't know who that is, but they had to go. I'm tired of y'all. Stop yelling. Why you think? Why can't you hold your liquor? And if, actually, I want to give you an excuse for being drunk. And not just being a shitty, obnoxious person. You're a social terrorist. You have a bigger need for attention than I do. At least I worked there and it got on television. You just stay in the darkness and shit. You're not gonna even be able to parlay this into any pussy, man. You can't hang out in front of the video. Hey, that was me, yelling like a jackass. You want to have a
Do you strip down to your what do you call them over there? Not your Speedos, but your the red bit?
No, I only do that for the ones I love. Hollywood can't make me show my underwear like that, but some special Australian lady can. Come check. He just walked through. He didn't say, hey, he didn't get on the PA and say, hey, it's Jimmy Carter, y'all want to shake my hand? If you want to shake my hand, raise your hand. Right. He just walked through and said, hey, I'm former President Jimmy Carter, shake my nasty hand. And so the person from...
Stop texting me, Sprint, telling me to pay my phone bill. Like I'm gonna do that shit on time. Please. Yo, Facebook took a post down. I'm about to play all this shit. I posted on my Facebook. My Facebook and took it down.
At 9 p.m. tonight, my campaign team is bringing me an updated list of my supporters.
Why can't this White House acknowledge that the media is not the enemy of the people?
Well, I can tell you why, Brooke, but I'd rather show you how you lie to the people and hire actors so you can push your own anti-liberty agendas. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know, and don't forget to subscribe to my website so you can sidestep all this censorship banning nonsense.
If you are a dishonest auctioneer and you want to bring a higher price for the items you're selling, you hire somebody, plant them in the crowd, and have them bid on the things you're auctioning off. And the crowd doesn't know it. They think it's just another person who showed up like they did. It's an incredibly dishonest, unethical practice which relies on deception to artificially increase an item's price or desirability. This practice is known as shill bidding. A shill is used to deceive the people into believing that he's one of them, but he's not. He's an unprincipled deceiver with no conscience and therefore no morals.
Hey guys, before I get back to the video, I just want to let you know this is sponsored by Virtual Shield VPN. Hide your activity and location with this virtual private network, which basically makes you invisible to spies.
Yo, I posted this on my Facebook like earlier this morning. They took that shit down. I just reposted it again. Let's see how long it stays up there.
Data miners, hackers, and even your internet service provider. Virtual Shield believes you have the right to remain private. The question is, do you? You can get 20% off plus a free trial with my link in the description. Now, back to the video.
Here's just one example of it. His name is Jeremy Montanez. I'll explain why he's in a minute, but let's run through what Jeremy believes. And stay with me, because in this day and age where mainstream media is going out of its way to convince you that they are not the enemy of the people and that they're not fake news, and that you can trust them, Jeremy here is just one small objective example that you can show anybody with two brain cells to rub together that mainstream media is indeed the enemy of the people, they are fake news, and you can never trust them. Oh yeah, one more thing before we get into Jeremy. I'm convinced that one of the reasons they want to censor and outright ban alternative social media channels like Alex Jones, like they terminated my main channel and so many others, is because we're a serious burr under their saddles. Because content like you're about to see here, where we expose their corruption and lies, hinders them from having free reign with their deceptive practices. Remember, they want to deceive you because they want to push their anti-individual liberty agendas as they attempt to push us closer to global governance under a centralized authority. The accumulation of power and money is what this is always about. So let's meet a This is Jeremy Montanez, and this is his YouTube channel where he says, "Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm here because I like to act. I like to be on camera. I love social issues, movies, and whatnot, and I like to talk about them. So feel free to watch, subscribe, insult, comment, whatever you want." Okay, Jeremy, we'll do that. Keep in mind that he likes to act and be on camera. We'll see that in a bit, but let's see what Jeremy believes about guns, for example. As of the recording of this video, Jeremy has 16 videos on his YouTube channel, but there are 3 that will be of interest to us. Rest in peace, Christina Grimmie, For the People of Orlando, and Combat Weapons Must Be Banned. Here's a quick compilation of his mentality toward guns and people control, also known as gun control. Now this is going to last about 3.5 minutes, but it's important for you to really know who this guy is from his own mouth, because I want to make it clear what he stands for and what, or more specifically, who he stands against. you'll see that it's crystal clear that CNN wants to use this guy to deceive you into believing he's something he's not, and that he believes things that he actually doesn't.
Last night's events as well could have been prevented. And all this has to do with the fact that these people were able to get these killing machines, also known as guns, and use them to take lives. That girl did not need to die, and she wouldn't have had the maniac that killed her got a gun. I hope in the future this country does reform. And to those of you who bitch at me about your rights, well, she had a right to live. And that was taken away because of the gun. I don't care if he was mentally ill, I don't care if he had a knife, I don't care if he had anything else. If he didn't have a gun, the girl would still be alive. All of you gun supporters and people who care more about rights of a gun than a human life, you can't deny those facts. It makes me disgusted at the majority of this country, but then what can I expect anything less from, you know, a majority of half the population nominating a person like Donald Trump?
Nominating a person like Donald Trump.
You know, I don't think this country, sadly, is ever going to change in that way, which is why there's plenty of other countries to be in or move to if you have the opportunity and the luxury to do that. Hopefully one day I will. Because I would hate for if I was to have children, I wouldn't want them to grow up here. Let's just say that. I wouldn't feel safe with them growing up here. I am just so appalled and just disgusted by the mentality of a lot of people. I happen to have posted a comment very much lashing out on weapon supporters in general. I mean, at least that's the way it sounded. And I tried to make it clear what I was talking about was combat weapons, meaning in the military or, you know, for the police. And those are the ones that I have no business having and the general public have no business having and should be banned. And this is not the issue here. I'm not talking about hunting rifles, even though, I mean, if I had to vote for them to be banned, would I? Absolutely.
The name of the channel is High Impact Vlogs.
And that's a whole different.
It doesn't say the name of the host of the channel.
These people, meaning the guy that killed the 50 and the son.
No, did I really do that?
Is it just me, or does Christine...
I truly hope you'll step up, add your name to my list of supporters before...
To vote for them to be banned, would I? Absolutely.
He's saying that this guy right here is an actor.
And that's a whole different subject. I'm talking about, I mean, if I had to vote for them to be banned, would I? Absolutely. But that's not the case. And that's a whole different subject. I'm talking about things that are specifically made to kill people. If these people, meaning the guy that killed the 50 and the son of a fuck that killed Christina Grimmie, if they did not have access to those weapons, all of those people would still be alive. Combat weapons should be just as hard, if not harder to get than illegal drugs. If anybody...
Illegal drugs aren't hard to get, though.
That's supposedly one of my friends. Supports anyone being able to own a weapon like that. Please remove yourself. I am disgusted and appalled by it, but that's your choice. But I will not associate myself with people like that. So as long as you people support that kind of shit, then you're just as bad as the people that did it, in my opinion.
Okay, so we know from his own social media presence what Jeremy Montanez believes. And we know that he stood against Trump before the election. So obviously, he did not vote for Trump, even though CNN is going to tell you that he did and that everyone else on the panel did. From his own social media post, we can easily see that he's a self-described socialist, that he supports Maxine Waters, that he wants Trump impeached, and that he's an actor who likes to be on camera. We also can see from his own Twitter account that he's locked it down so that people can't see the things that he posted. By the way, While I was producing this video, I sent him a private tweet in the hopes that he'll accept my request to follow him so we can actually see what's on his Twitter feed that he wants to hide. I let him know that he did a great job on CNN. And of course, what I mean by that is that he did a decent job acting like somebody he's not. I'll let you guys know if he gets back to me. On CNN's website describing this video, it says, CNN brought a group of Trump voters together to discuss their views on family separations and the president's perceived views on race. Trump voters, huh? We'll see about that. And now, without further ado, here's CNN's stage act featuring actor Jeremy Montanez playing the part of disgruntled Trump supporter in Trump Voter, the President is a Monster. Listen very carefully as CNN goes out of its way to deceive you once again.
All right, we are more than 18 months into the Trump presidency, so we thought it would be a good time to check in with Trump voters.
The way she emphasizes this makes CNN's lie even worse.
Trump voters.
To see how they're feeling today. I sat down with a panel of people from California, Texas, Ohio, and New York, all of whom voted for Donald Trump.
All of whom voted for Donald Trump.
Guys, it is amazing how many times she says this in this short segment as they try to convince you of this lie. What's that old saying? If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes politics.
At one time, these folks were all on the same side.
These folks were all on the same side.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
These folks were all on the same side.
You're wrong.
Excited about this outsider running for president. But as you'll see, times have changed, and today some feel very differently. So here now, our next Pulse of the People.
Guys, even this Pulse of the People nonsense is a lie. This is the Pulse of CNN. These people are feverishly trying to steer the viewer's mind into coming over to their leftist status mentality.
How many of you are still just as excited today as you were on election day about President Trump?
Maybe more so.
And how many of you, the rest, would you say that you regret your votes? Raise your hands.
I'm disappointed.
Why are you more excited today than you were?
You know, I came in with some trepidation based on his previous record. He's the most pro-life president we've had, more than Reagan. He's done a substantial job protecting the Second Amendment, securing our border, deporting illegal aliens. He made a list of promises. He's coming through on many of them.
Jeremy, what do you regret about your vote?
There he is, guys. The star of the show. Avowed socialist and anti-Trumper, now playing the part of ex-pro-Trumper Jeremy Montanez. Let's listen to his script.
In my mind, and the way I look at him now, I think he's a monster. I think he's a bigot. I think that he's doing a lot of things to ruin people's lives. I don't think that I think that he's taking this country in the wrong direction, and it's a terrifying time for me.
I could just hear the CNN groupies now. See, even people who were once on board the Trump train have jumped off in time to realize that Trump is the monster we always said he was. He's a bigot, an all-around ruiner of people's lives. Because CNN and hired self-proclaimed actor Jeremy Montanez said so.
Was there a moment that turned you?
It was when I heard about what was going on the southern border.
See, even that's a lie. Because there was never a moment where he turned. He proves from his videos that he was against Trump before the election. This guy never voted for him.
What part did you object to?
The family separation and the children in cages. I would chime in just really quick. Yeah. You've got parents who are breaking the law, bringing their kids here. If you don't want to be separated from your family, don't come to the country illegally. You're having individuals coming from Central or even South America risking their lives and their children's lives.
Because their lives are at risk at home.
And they can go to an embassy and be safe there. Absolutely.
There's also
in the country of Mexico.
You can do it. It is legal here to go to a port of entry and seek asylum. It was President Trump that started the zero tolerance. So you used to be able to stay together. You couldn't under the zero tolerance.
Keep in mind also, we have these minors that are now getting excellent care. They're getting very good housing.
Look at this guy. He's really enjoying being in the studio and on camera. He keeps looking over at that camera with the light on.
But that's not the point. That is not the point. I mean, I'm a lawyer, and I can tell you, first of all, there were 2,500 children that came here. They were not reconnected. They did come here legally.
No one's really talked about the unaccompanied minors that are being brought here by people that are looking to sex traffic these children.
Yeah, listen,
Human trafficking is a huge thing right now.
Let's talk about that. The thing that got everyone's attention was that people who were not sex traffickers were bringing their kids and they got separated. And 572 of them may never see their parents again.
Thanks to the
Are they really the parents? Even after Trump's own directive, were they really the parents?
Hold on, we haven't heard yet from Chris. Go ahead.
This is the problem with what the president is doing. He's able to divide us on these issues. We're now fighting amongst ourselves. You know, you look at Charlottesville, you look at the separation of the families on the border, you just look at the tweeting. I've never seen an individual who is so good at connecting with sort of average people that has no ability to really communicate or control the way he communicates.
Now, this guy serves CNN's purpose of solidifying the narrative of Trump being the divider in chief. And in a lot of respects, guys, you gotta be honest, that's true. But the award for the most influential dividers and enemies of the people is mainstream media.
I think it's disingenuous to say that President Trump is wholly responsible for the bifurcation that we see across party lines right now.
But is he helping it?
I don't think that necessarily some of the things that he says could be said in a more polished manner.
My issue with this president, who I voted for,
And there's another attempt to get you to believe the lie. Did you really vote for him, lady? Why should we even believe that at this point?
is the fact that he has something negative to say about every other leader. But you try saying one little comment that's negative about Trump himself. He jumps into a fit and he has this Twitter tirade. You know, we have a lot of, really, I mean, I have to be crass about it, idiots who voted for him, including myself at one time.
And there you go. CNN wants you to know that they think you're an idiot if you voted for Trump. And that's their message.
Take great offense. I'm not an idiot. It's a wise decision that people voted. It was a wise decision for Michiganders, for Wisconsinites, for Pennsylvanians, for working Americans who were tired of their jobs being taken away, shipped overseas, or taken by illegals.
It's a wise decision that people voted.
By the way, guys, let's be honest. Voting is a practice by which you're saying that you want your ruler to rule over you and everybody else. You want them to set the policies that we must all abide by. In essence, voting is the practice by which slaves on the plantation support a different slave master, but a slave master nonetheless. Presidents act as rulers and authorities over other people to such an extent that the people don't mind these leaders stealing from them in the form of taxation, so that those rulers can live extravagant lives off the backs of the tax cattle. So what we're really seeing here on CNN is not only outright lies and deception, but a further solidification of the left versus right paradigm that keeps us divided, distracted, and deceived, while the real puppet masters of the international banking cartel go about their merry way, increasing riches and power. Oh, and taking individual liberties away from the rest of us.
I want to apologize to the nation for my vote for him. It was the wrong thing to do. It was the biggest mistake I ever made. Like I said, he is a racist.
Why do you believe he's racist?
Why do I believe he's racist? Look what happened in Puerto Rico. He said, oh, they want to just cry and, you know, they needed help. Just because they're not white-skinned, he doesn't want to go down there and help them out.
Jeremy, your acting career really took a hit right here. You're not even believable.
So I take great offense to the fact that you felt the need to apologize on the behalf of the entire nation, because that also that says to me that you are invalidating the validity of my vote.
No,
and I think the reasons why I voted for Donald Trump is because, based on my perception of him, he is not a racist, and he has done so much. He has done so much for the black community.
How do you explain the tweet about LeBron James and Don Lemon?
That's right.
I watched that interview.
But he I mean, the president has done this before. He's called people of color. He's called them ignorant. He's called them dumb.
He's called white people that too.
LeBron James is more stupid than Don Lemon.
He goes after Don Lemon and LeBron James and Maxine Waters. How do you explain that?
When you call someone's intellect into question, it has nothing to do with race.
I live with a lot of Hispanic evangelicals who are very pro-life. Hispanics care about God, family, jobs, education. Top things for us. But President Trump is delivering on those things. Right. So all this other rhetoric, of, oh, he tweeted this or he did this, I don't really care about that.
You don't care about that.
I care about God.
You're free to
family, God, family,
understood,
jobs,
Great.
and
You
education.
made a great point about that. And so, as somebody who is driven by her faith and cares about God and family, do any of the personal peccadillos give you pause? The Playboy model who was paid off, the payments to Stormy Daniels, the lies about affairs. Does any of that give you pause?
You know, we are taught as Christians to be forgiving. I'm not going to get into his personal life. That was not something that I weighed in to go vote for him.
Does it make you
anything was better than Hillary?
Absolutely. When you hear about the Playboy stuff, does it make you uncomfortable?
No, I'm not here to judge about what he did on his miscellaneous activities or what he was doing outside of his bedroom. That is not what I voted for him to do. I voted for him for his policies and his agenda to put this country back on track.
Go! Now she's going to say it again just so viewers know that they were all Trump voters, even though we know better.
One more time. That was not Clinton voters versus Trump voters. Those were all Trump voters.
Those were all Trump voters.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
Those were all Trump voters.
Then what can I expect anything less from, you know, a majority of half the population nominating a person like Donald Trump?
Now, either CNN got Jeremy on because he lied to him and presented himself as a former Trump voter so he could fulfill his lust for being in front of the camera, in which case CNN still doesn't get excused because they should vet people before they sit them in front of a national audience, or CNN stacked the deck to support their narrative. In either case, CNN has made themselves conspirators in the propagation of fake news again, and therefore have once again shown themselves to be the enemies of the people.
Why can't this White House acknowledge that the media is not the enemy of the people?
But listen to them drive this "these were all Trump voters" home in a more subtle way.
I have to say, I find it fascinating when you bring these people together, and we talk about the phenomenon in the country right now where the president's approval rating, despite a booming economy, has a ceiling at 42 to 45%. What you see there is the ceiling. You see that even some people who voted for Donald Trump will not support him because of the policies he has at the southern border, or just negativity, or perhaps foreign policy there.
No, what you actually saw was CNN's rendition of what they wanted you to believe. They've lied to us so many times and deceived so many people that nothing they ever say can be trusted.
And unless he replaces some of these people with people who voted against him, that could be trouble. Now, maybe that will happen if the economy improves. It'll be interesting to see as you continue to do these, if you get people who have been won over since the election. But if he loses some people who wanted a change of flavor and now don't like the flavor they're tasting, it'll be a problem.
Did you see what he just did there? He basically said, if Trump keeps losing people like this, one of whom we've already established was a liar who never voted for Trump, and replace them with people who didn't vote for him, then he's going to have a problem. And the context is, we're going to find out what's really going on as you, Allison, keep doing these shows, because you're actually interviewing former Trump followers. What a joke. Hey, CNN, Dan Rather and Brian Williams were fired for way less than what Allison Camerota did here. I wonder if the Young Turks will expose this blatant lie. I wouldn't hold my breath. Guys, my channel could literally be terminated because of this video. But let the record show, YouTube, that Jeremy Montanez revealed himself as the deceiver here. Guys, in order to combat censorship and all these banning practices, sign up to my email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. Once you sign up, you'll get a confirmation email. So just make sure to mark it as not spam. That way, we can stay in touch in case this channel is terminated as well. And for those of you who don't know, they terminated my main channel and basically told 516,000 subscribers, we don't give a damn what you subscribe to see. We've decided that we don't want you to see it. This is unacceptable. If this backup channel goes down, I'm still going to produce videos for you guys and upload them to my website. And I'm going to use the BitChute and Steemit decentralized censorship-free platforms to do it. Please take a second to subscribe to those channels and my other social media accounts. All those links will be in the description and in the pinned comment. I'll see you guys in the next video, if my channel is still around. Before you go, check out one of the most in-your-face, hard-hitting, conversation-starting shirt stores on the planet. Just by wearing one of these t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, or cutoffs, and without saying a word, you can let people know that black rifles matter. You can inform the sleeping masses that fluoride is dumbing them down, that Google is a gulag-style censorship machine, that the Department of Homeland Security is merely security theater, that the NSA makes your private life their business, that the Grim Reaper supports everyone's troops, that we need to legalize freedom, that in life there are no excuses, that CNN is a communist news network, voting is the suggestion box of slaves, that 9/11 was a lie, and that all official stories should be questioned. Also, let people know we're in the middle of a full-blown sheep-volution, taxation is theft, the IRS is an immoral robbery service, cops enjoy protecting and serving the crap out of you, that the space you occupy is not a gun-free zone, and that gun-free zones are the most dangerous places on earth. Your purchase helps support more hard-hitting content on my censored channel. As of the recording of this video, I have over 90 designs. I take your requests for new designs, and I'm adding new ones every week, so check back often. The link to the store is in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Tensions at the border have hit a boiling point. Mexican nationalists clash with migrants waiting to get into the U.S.
Our 10 News reporter Anthony Pura is live at the border where crews continue to reinforce the wall tonight.
Well, they are making the wall higher. You can see the old wall here at the end of this parking lot, and then you can see the new one over there. Crews are working on that tonight. Border Patrol says this was a pre-planned upgrade that started in the summer. It is coming at a time, though, when migrants are knocking at the door, creating strain on both countries.
Violence erupted on the Mexican side of the wall. Tijuana residents are frustrated with a large number of Central American migrants. Last night, this exchange ended with punching, kicking, and rock throwing. One person left with a bloody eye.
No es discriminar, no es ser racista.
This Tijuana resident says they're not discriminating against the caravan, but says there are so many and no place to put them. He doesn't want any more to come, though thousands more are on their way.
Pues es lo que le queremos preguntar a nuestra autoridad, ¿qué más?
This man says he wants to know what the government will do to protect Tijuana residents because he doesn't think many of the migrants will be able to cross into the U.S. U.S. troops and Border Patrol are making sure no one comes illegally. Concertina wire and U.S. patrols at Friendship Park are waiting for any migrant daring enough to try. Behind the Las Americas Outlet Mall, crews are working into the night on a new border wall. It's 20 feet taller than the current one in some areas. It's also see-through and built with anti-climbing features. Border Patrol says it is part of a construction project that started in June to replace 14 miles of aging wall. It is not related to the caravan, but should help secure the border overall.
Now, Border Patrol has not given us an idea of how many people are waiting to get into the U.S., but we understand that members from the first caravan back in May are still waiting to be processed. We're reporting live tonight, Anthony Pura, 10 News.
Now, the government in Mexico's border city, Tijuana, is struggling to deal with hundreds of migrants who have arrived in recent days. Meantime, the people who live there are having to cope with the influx as well, leading to conflicts in the street. One America's Luke Glaze has more on the situation at the border.
Violence breaks out at the border as Mexican residents begin pushing back against the hundreds of migrants who have arrived in the first wave of the Central American caravan. Police broke up a confrontation Wednesday night after residents of one community in Tijuana took to the streets to protest the hundreds of migrants who have flooded in as they seek to enter the United States. Amid cries of racism, the Mexican natives defended their actions by saying their city is already overcrowded.
No es discriminar.
We are not discriminating against anyone. We are not being racist. What we want is security for the community. We don't want any more migrants in Playas de Tijuana.
This comes after the DHS reported there are hundreds of known criminals, including violent gang members, traveling in the caravan. confirming suspicions voiced by President Trump in what he has referred to as an invasion on the United States. After arriving on buses this week, dozens of migrants are camping out next to the fence bordering California, while others are now sleeping in cramped shelters or in tents on the streets of Tijuana as they wait to apply for asylum. According to Border Patrol in the area, the agency has apprehended more than a dozen migrants already who have attempted to cross into the U.S. illegally by jumping the border fence. Authorities say they're expecting around 2,000 more people to arrive in the coming days, while the latest estimates indicate there may be 10,000 migrants in all, as the bulk of the caravan is still making its way through the heart of Mexico. Luke Glaze, One America News.
Thank you for joining us. The mission to beef up border security continues at ports of entry along the southern border.
And as News 4 Tucson's Lupita Murillo tells us, the steps being taken to reduce the number of illegal border crossings is impacting some families. Lupita's live in Nogales with more for us. Lupita?
John, one of our viewers said to us that the concertina wire that you see here in Nogales makes Nogales look like a concentration camp, while others say it is protecting our border.
Gracias, Martín. Nos invitaste back again.
Martín Osorio Cervantes traveled from Phoenix to see his parents and his sister at the border. While he was here, he saw the military installing the wire along the fence.
No, no es la solución.
Adding to the fence is not a solution.
Dimos lejos, pues.
His family traveled from Oaxaca and Mexico City to see him through the fence. They can't come into the U.S. because they don't have a visa. And he can't go into Mexico because he's waiting for his documentation to come through that would allow him to go back and forth. We asked him about his thoughts on the fortification.
Pues según por la caravana, pero pues...
Supposedly for the caravan, but they're not even going to come through here. I don't know why the soldiers are here. They should be using them for something more important.
Más como política.
I think it's more about politics than security.
West of the Mariposa port of entry, more soldiers are fortifying the border, all under the close watch of the military police who are armed and the border patrol. While in Mexico, spotters can be seen in the hill above, keeping an eye on the military's activities.
We haven't really paid too much attention to what's going on across the border. We've got the border patrol out here with us. We're supporting the Customs and Border Protection, so they're well integrated into what we're doing. We're focusing more on what's going on just in the local area.
The soldiers will be here through Thanksgiving. Reporting live from Nogales, Arizona, Lupita Murillo, News 4 Tucson.
Lupita, thank you. Today, Congressman Raul Grijalva says he's calling for an investigation after seeing reports of military units blocking lanes of traffic, installing razor wire, and conducting exercises at the Nogales port of entry. This comes as Customs and Border Protection announced plans to move ahead with border wall construction in southern Arizona starting in April.
Good morning, everybody. We have a very interesting conversation coming up with a Tijuanan who's an anthropologist and writer and who has studied the governments of Central America and what we need to appreciate as to why these caravans are coming. Speaking of the caravans, as we look across on the other side, we tell you from the San Isidro port of entry, while everything is focused on fortifying the port of entry here, it begets the question of, are these thousands of people, including women and children, really going to come here seeking asylum and then risk everything by rushing the border or trying to cross over illegally, which has strained Tijuana mightily. The migrants have arrived earlier than expected by bus. Already, we are told by Mexican officials, some 1,750 Central Americans are in Tijuana, including 800 who arrived yesterday, and there are reports that as many as 4,000 could arrive today or during the weekend. Reserves are strained, resources are strained to say the least, and Tijuanans are looking for some guidance financially from Mexico City and to a larger...
I have seen live extraterrestrials face to face.
The shape of it was what kind of gave it away as...
The article that just came out in 4, but he's on the other side of the fence of it. This is what's about to happen in society. This is what is coming. I feel like I have made many videos on this, and there are people that come into those videos and they say nasty things in the comments and they laugh it off like it's all a joke. And the thing is, keep laughing. It's not a joke though. This is serious. This is coming, and we're all here, so we should be discussing this together. Instead of la-di-dying about our day, distracted by whatever random politician is doing whatever, years-old sex scandal with whoever. I mean, who cares? That is just so inconsequential to the grand scheme of everything if we're living in this situation that is talked about in this article right here. This is the discussion that should be being had right now over coffee, with your friends, and with your parents, and with whoever. You should be talking about this. I hate to start a video out, where it's like I'm admonishing random strangers. I don't want to do that, but everyone gets wrapped up in whatever's going on in the 24/7 news cycle because that is a distraction. It is there specifically to distract you from the actual situation that's at hand. And that would be this. They are mainstreaming transhumanism right now. Human 2.0 is coming faster than you think. Will you evolve with the times? Everything about Darwinian evolution was a platform for directed human evolution. And I'm not even going to go there right now. I've got so much research to talk about on that subject. But that's not even the point. We're here now, so let's talk about what's here now. And they start with Ray Kurzweil. Of course, he's this guy who stumps for all of this stuff.
I say that your smartphone is an extension of you and that you can't do your work without it. If you leave it at home, you can't really function fully intelligently. People really accept that today. Even just a few years ago, people that did not seem realistic. Nobody can do their work or get their education without these brain extenders we have now. And they're going to go inside our bodies and brains.
A lot of his ideas, most of his ideas in his book, Age of Spiritual Machines and otherwise, are not new ideas. They're not original to him. They are taken from the cybernetics meetings, which we talk about at length in our film, The Minds of Men. The stuff that they were talking about in the 40s, which kicked off all of this stuff, by the way. We wouldn't be here right now if those meetings hadn't taken place, period. That is where cybernetics came from. It came from World War II. And the meetings, the secret, very secretive meetings they were having afterwards. And then that launched into the MK Ultra project. Okay, all of these things are hand in glove. They all go together. That is what we discuss in our film. We discuss it at length. We lay it all out with all the research as to how that happened, who was there, what they talked about, and how we got. It's really that whole film, even though it's set back in that time period. That film is a large part of how we got here today, technologically speaking. So, Kurzweil comes out and says, our technology is part of our humanity. Is it? Is it? I guess in a way it is. I mean, you can't really go out in public without seeing people face down in their phones everywhere. I mean, there are people that freak out if you suggest to them, hey, have you gone to the store lately without your phone? There are people who can't get 3 feet into a grocery store in the produce section without making a phone call about broccoli. They just can't do it. They can't seem to function anymore without it. And he's talking about how we created this technology to extend ourselves. That's what's unique about us. Goes on to say, it's no secret that Google has transhumanistic aspirations. In 2011, Stephen Levy made a bold statement about the company in his book, In the Plex, quote, "From the very start, its founder saw Google as a vehicle to realize the dream of artificial intelligence in augmenting humanity."
And if you think about it, computers can give you digital senses that you did not even have. Hearing and speaking and even understanding. So all of a sudden, computers are not the same as people, but they can really go back to that notion of making our lives, think of them as augmented humanity, making us better. Think of them as augmented humanity.
Period. Not to realize artificial intelligence as a way of realizing it. No, it was to augment us. Now, think about Google. It is the #1 website that's visited by people, period, on a daily basis. Kurzweil goes on to say the singularity will represent the culmination of the merger of our biological thinking and existence with our technology, resulting in a world that is still human, but that transcends our biological roots. And then this article goes on to say the term singularity originated in a 1993 essay called The Coming Technological Singularity by a science fiction author and a professor named Werner Vinge. And that may be the time that everyone knows, or that may be the key time that really like spelled it out. We're about to merge forever with this technology. But that's not the first time I heard that term. The first time I heard a term about technological singularity, it came from John von Neumann back in the 50s, which is one of our key cyberneticists that was in those secret meetings in the 40s that we talk about in the film that we put out, because he's one of the main cyberneticians that touched all of this off. He's the guy that first talked about singularity, and I think it's very interesting in this Forbes article where they're laying all this out, that the guy who is laying this out is trying to act like that didn't happen until 1993. It happened back in the 50s. This is a long ago thought about situation that they have been bringing about for many, many decades. John von Neumann was a frequent consultant to the Central Intelligence Agency, the United States Army, the Rand Corporation, Standard Oil, IBM, you name it. So this is not just any person. He also is a key central figure in coming up with game theory, which, by the way, is what's running most of society today, game theory. And the quote that he said when he brought this idea up was, "The ever-accelerating progress of technology gives the appearance of approaching some essential singularity in the history of the race beyond which human affairs as we know them could not continue." And SingularitySymposium.com goes on to say that his definition of the singularity is the moment beyond which technological progress will become incomprehensibly rapid and complicated. But that is not, after researching the man, reading his writings, and doing a whole film where we talk about him and his group, that is not what I believe he was talking about at all. And if you just look at the quote itself and think about it for a second, the appearance of approaching an essential singularity in the history of the human race, the race, beyond which human affairs cannot continue, because it won't be a human affair anymore. I mean, that's the way that I see it. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe these people are completely right, but I think there's more to it than just, well, it's going to be, the computers are going to be so insanely fast that it's just going to be complicated. And that's a really boring underplaying, I think, of what the ramifications are of what he's really saying there. But this person goes on with this Werner Vinge guy, and he says, to grasp the significance of this guy's thinking, it's important to realize where we were as a society in the early 90s. Back then, the invention of smartphones and social media platforms were years away. The internet itself, now so vital to all aspects of our life, communication, commerce, entertainment, was in its infancy. And Vinge boldly proclaimed, within 30 years, we will have the technological means to create superhuman intelligence. Shortly after, the human era will be ended. 30 years. So he's talking 2023. And then this article goes on to say, just consider, here we are, a little shy of the 30 years of Vinge's prediction, and the reality of transhumanism has not just caught on with the general public as a distinct possibility, it has become a living, breathing reality.
Transhumanism is the idea that man is merging with technology.
Transhumanists look forward to a future in which Homo sapiens is superseded by a better, smarter, fitter model, Humanity 2.0.
They are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. In the medium future, within a few decades or a couple of centuries at most, Homo sapiens will disappear because it is going to upgrade itself into a completely different kind of being.
The theme of this conference is transhumanism and hybrid age. We think that this is the most prescient, most important theme that we could be talking about right now. We have a post-human paradigm impending for our future, and so we want to prep people, we want to explain what that is, and because it's inevitable.
I sought to tap into the cultural zeitgeist on this subject by interviewing Ben Goertzel. Oh wow. You know what? I'll just play a clip of this guy so you can get a general idea, and we'll move on.
As well as a singularitarian, I consider myself a cosmist. What this means is that I don't identify myself purely as a human being living in human society. I am that, and humanity is important to me. But I also envision myself as a sort of citizen of the universe, as a certain stage in the development of intelligence and life, going from long before humans and long into the future.
Yeah, he's the founder and CEO of SingularityNet and chairman of the Artificial General Intelligence Society and the Open Cog Foundation. And then he went and talked also to David Hanson, who helped Goertzel co-create Sophia, which is the first robot to gain national citizenship. just by the way. One of the creepier things I've seen in a long time. Like Vinge and Kurzweil, Goertzel is fascinated by the idea of transhumanism and makes the case it's not just pie-in-the-sky conjecture. Transhumanism has been occurring for some time, albeit in analog form. In a way, it's happening bit by bit, Goertzel said. If you take my glasses away, I become impaired, I can't operate, and I can't participate in the world. And of course, if you take the smartphone away from my wife or kids, they go into withdrawal and become heavily impaired. Impaired is one word for it, but...
For those humans who choose to upload their minds into computers, for those humans who choose to fuse with the machines.
The way he's talking, he's acting like you have to have a smartphone to exist, which is what they're trying to do in this society. They're definitely making it so that you really can't participate in things anymore if you don't have a smartphone, if you're not on social media. And he goes on to say, many people fear transhumanism, and theologians fear will denigrate the soul's sanctity by achieving immortality. Yeah, the reason that theologians say that is because it comes straight out of Genesis 3:5. When the serpent came into the garden and made the promise that ye will be as gods. That's totally straight out of there, and that is why theologians say that. The way that they're saying this, they're kind of just saying, oh, theologians are just some crazy people that came up with that. No, they're coming up with it because it's one of the very first things that even happens in the Bible, period. Okay, that is why those people are saying that. I'm just saying. In the early 2000s, the editors of Foreign Policy asked policy intellectuals, probably in a very rhetorical way, what idea, if embraced, would pose the greatest threat to the welfare of humanity. And Francis Fukuyama, professor of international political economy at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, pointed to transhumanism, calling it the world's most dangerous idea. Writing for Psychology Today, Massimo Pigliucci stated, there are several problems with the pursuit of immortality, one of which is particularly obvious. If we live much, much longer, we all consume more resources and have more children, leading to even more overpopulation and environmental degradation. That's fine to say, but it's pretty obvious that they don't really expect to allow everyone to live forever. I mean, I did a whole report not that long ago on Sean Parker, co-creator of Facebook, talking about because he's a millionaire, he's going to have access to better healthcare, he's going to live to be 160, and he's going to be like a class of immortal overlords. They're going to be living twice as long as everyone else because they have the money to afford the technology in which to do so. That is not going to be for everybody. So it's really naive and ridiculous to even make an argument where they pretend like it was going to be for everybody, because that's a big club and not everyone is in it. Not that you would want to be, because look at what they're suggesting here, that you have to merge with this technology in order to do it. And they spell it out pretty hardcore as this continues. Goertzel says in some ways we're already human-machine hybrids.
I would like to talk to you about the field of study that I'm involved in called cyborg anthropology, but first I have a quick question. Can everyone hold up your cell phones really quickly? So for those of you who held up your cell phones, you're cyborgs, and the people who held them up fast are more cyborg than the rest.
And we have already a symbiotic relationship with our technology, and in that sense, we're already transhuman. And I'm sure many of you here today brought your smartphones with you.
Your phone is already an extension of you. You're already a cyborg. You don't even, well, most people don't realize they are already a cyborg.
And if a caveman came into the modern world, he'd be astounded at how symbiotic we are with our machines. And that's true. I mean, without a computer right now, I can't even talk to you guys about this in the way that I'm able to do. But the computer is still separate from me. This computer is not inside of my body at this time. And this computer never will be. And if it gets to the point where that's the way it has to be in this society, I guess you guys won't be hearing from me anymore, because I'm not doing this. But there's more pragmatic reasons. Now we go to the controlled opposition other side of the argument with Elon Musk, talking about if you can't beat it, join it. A lot of people saw him on the Joe Rogan Experience. Elon Musk is the one who came out on the other side and said, with AI, we're summoning the demon.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and holy water, and he's like, yeah, sure, you can control the demon. Doesn't work out.
He straight up says it in those terms. So in one hand, he'll warn you, like, with AI, we're summoning the demon, guys. Which is a pretty serious statement to make in a world that's supposed to be based on science and facts. And for him to talk like that we're summoning a demon. But then on the other side of his mouth, he's saying, well, we really have to merge with the demon.
If you assume any rate of advancement in AI, we will be left behind by a lot. And so then
we could be in, even a benign situation. If you have if you have ultra intelligent AI, we would be so far below them in intelligence that it would be like, a pet, basically.
Cat, that's what I was
like a
thinking,
pet,
cat,
a cat, like a cat. It'd be like a house cat. Yeah, it would be like the house cat.
Right.
Because he's got a company called Neuralink, where you will be putting what he calls a neural lace inside of your brains.
But what's the solution? The solution that seems maybe the best one is to have an AI layer, so it's be some sort of direct cortical interface.
And you called it a neural lace?
Neural lace. I'm talking about something which...
So you wear it?
No, I mean, it would be some sort of interface directly with your cortical neurons particularly.
So that you can become symbiotic with artificial intelligence. That way, it doesn't want to kill you, because it doesn't look at you as an ant or as some worthless animal that could just die and it doesn't care. Because it's not going to care, because it's a machine. How much is it going to really care about anything? But anyway, so he's saying we need to combine human brains with computers, which is what all of these guys are saying.
I'm not a big believer in letting artificial intelligence just roam freely. I think we should keep it controlled and merge human beings with it. And the greatest thing about within 20 years is that we're definitely going to have cranial implants. But eventually these cranial implants in our brain will be able to commune directly with machines.
By connecting our neocortex to the cloud, to synthetic neocortex in the cloud, and basically get, again, more neocortex, and that will be an enabling factor to create more profound music, to be funnier, to be more artistic, to basically enhance the qualities of humanity that we value.
Once we'll have cranial jacks to plug into the back of our heads, you'll be able to go on BitTorrent and download new thoughts and feelings and upload them. And kind of hope you don't get a virus plugged into your mind.
Last year, for the first time in world history, a memory was recorded. We can actually tape record a memory and insert it back into an animal, and it remembers. This will replace the internet. It'll become a brain net. We'll record emotions, thoughts, patterns of behavior, and send it on the internet. Teenagers will love it. Can you imagine Facebook? You send emotions, your first date, your first kiss, your first senior prom. Teenagers already put little happy faces on their emails, right? But we're going to be able to record thoughts, and the movies are going to be replaced by the brain net. Movies today are a flat screen with sound. In the future, perhaps emotions and feelings will also be conveyed. This is called total immersion entertainment.
In an attempt to symbiotically join our minds with the machines. And to be clear here, when these people talk about your mind, they are not talking about your brain. Those two things are not the same thing. A lot of people don't recognize that. I have read enough books at this point by cyberneticists, by neurologists. There's something they were working on decades ago, and they call it the mind-brain problem. And what that essentially is, from what I can tell, is that they know all about your brain, the organ that's inside your skull. And they've been doing everything they can to learn about how all of the neurons in it function.
You guys think about putting the crown, like the gold Basquiat crown over Prodigy? I don't know if you like that shit or not, but I've done that a couple of times for some RIP pieces that I've done. Always give them the crown, you know what I'm saying? And I got that aura. You can kind of see how it looks like he's glowing a little bit. I really tried to make sure this red was different from that. When you see it in person, this red right here is super bright, yo. I mixed like 2 different reds for that. So I'm gonna just work on this arm, the bracelet, add some more details to your shirt, and then I'll work on him, get some more highlights in his face and his shirt, and then his necklace, the tattoos, and then put details on the gun. It's almost done, bro. That's what I know, man. Get that aura, get that glow around him.
and what's all interconnected in different parts and how it works and everything else. But your mind, however, that's been much, much more elusive. They can't point to the place in your brain where your mind is housed. They can't do that. They've been trying to figure it out for a long time where your mind is. It's like the Pixies song, "Where is my mind?" Right? Where is it? They don't know. They'd love to find that out. They would love to be able to point to it on a chart and go, that's where the mind is. They can't. And when he says, we're going to symbiotically join our minds with the machines, that's a very telling statement. It infers quite a bit more than simply jacking your brain in to the internet like we're in the Matrix or something. The merge scenario with AI is the one that seems like probably the best, Musk recently said on the Joe Rogan Experience. If you can't beat it, join it.
The merge scenario with AI is the one that seems like probably the best. Like
for us.
Yes. Like if you can't beat it, join it.
So this is the controlled opposition other side of things. They're making it seem like you only have two choices, merge or merge. That there's really no third option of saying, I'm not doing this, because they're making it sound like if you don't, you'll be destroyed. Don't you find that quite interesting that as a whole society, we are creating a technology now where the argument is you either join it or you join it. You really don't have any other choice. That's what they're making it sound like. I'm not saying that's what is the choice. I'm saying that's what they're making it sound like. A visionary himself, Gerstle has long foreseen Musk's vision coming, yet he urges caution in its implementation. Quote, "The next step to take is to wire these machines directly into the brain and body, rather than to have them held in our hands."
Once we'll have cranial jacks to plug into the back of our heads.
Clearly this takes time and thought because you need to be careful with sticking wires into human brains and bodies, but that work is being done, and it's not going to take more than a decade. So they have known for a long time, you guys, that this was where this was headed. It's not like they just got here and suddenly went, oh, you know what? This road is headed towards the singularity. No, okay? They have known about this and talked about this concept since the 50s, when von Neumann first started talking about singularity, and all this cybernetics and everything else which came out in the 40s, as we detail in our film The Minds of Men.
Is this like a collective AI in the Google sort of search, Google search, you know, where we're all sort of plugged in as like nodes on the network, like leaves on a big tree. We're all feeding this network without questions and answers. We're all collectively programming the AI, and and Google plus all the humans that connect to it are one giant cybernetic collective. This is also true of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these social networks. They're giant cybernetic collectives.
Returning to Vinge's prescience at the end of the 20th century, we can see he was imagining a future that would occur sooner than he predicted. Gerstle is saying it's not going to take more than a decade. That means 2028. That means within the next 10 years. It'll be before 2028 is what he's saying. It's 2018. If we take Gerstle at his word, we're through Fukuyama and others hand-wringing the stage. We're now at the point to think about practicalities. Technology slows down for no one. Whether we like it or not, there's a pre-smartphone and a post-smartphone world. So there's a world before we had smartphones, there's a world where we have smartphones, and there's a world coming where there will be no more smartphones. But do you think people are going to give up that technology and everyone's going to go, you know, this was all a bad idea, it's interfering with how we function as human beings, let's just take a step back? Not a chance. Technology slows down for no one. There's a post-smartphone world coming. Presumably, we all know someone who is loath to adopt the new technology. Are we staring down the gulf at Human 2.0, which is only something that the movies have been predictively programming us for decades. Decades. Because think about when Hollywood really hit its stride. Also after World War II. Think about when TV came along. Also after World War II is when it really got spread around the world and became a household thing. That was during the 40s. And the 50s is when that really became something that everybody embraced. And so we have been programmed, and then think about the programming that came out right away. Things like Twilight Zone, right? We've been programmed for this eventuality as a species for decades and decades and decades. predictive programming. But here's the point. Here's the whole, I know I've been ranting about this now for a very long time. Where am I going with all this? Why am I so heated up about it? This is the part of this that you need to hear, okay? If you heard nothing else I said, right here. To put this dilemma in clear focus, Goertzel advises considering the question not from your perspective, but from your child's perspective. He paints a picture, quote, imagine it's 8 years from now. All the other kids in your daughter's 3rd grade class are way ahead of her because their brains are connected directly to Google and a calculator. And they're SMSing back and forth with Wi-Fi telepathy in their brain, whole networks of people. I mean, what are we really talking about? We're talking about a technological hive mind, and here's the technology they're using right now to build us up to that. While your daughter sits there in class being stunted because she must memorize things the old-fashioned way. She can't send messages brain to brain. Goertzel suggests that you consider what you would do if your daughter's teacher brought you in for a parent conference and told you that your daughter couldn't keep up with her classmates because your daughter doesn't have a brain-computer interface jacked directly into Google. She's not communicating with people via Wi-Fi telepathy. Imagine the teacher suggested some form of upgrade. Now look at this, they put it in italics. You love your daughter. You want the best for her. What would you do? Can you imagine this is the situation that's coming? I mean, you can act like this is just some scaremongering thing that Forbes decided to put out, but it's really not. This is the way all of these people from all of these tech companies in Silicon Valley, this is how they're talking and have been talking for years now. It's just this is not the stuff they put on the nightly news because they don't want it widely discussed.
Actually, I just edited a special issue of a journal on mind uploading. It's the first journal issue on mind uploading, the contributions by all these serious scientists.
They want you to just incrementally inch your way into this, and then you finally get to a point where that's just how it is for everyone, and you don't have really a choice. And that's what it says down here at the bottom. At this point, the prospect of transhumanism stops being an intellectual exercise and becomes a question of subsistence. Subsistence, as in you cannot exist without it. I mean, we were talking just a little bit ago about all the ways they could even do that. I mean, think about it. We're going to have computer-controlled cars. How much farther would it be to be a car that you can't control by computer unless you jack into it? Or the way that payment systems are made on the internet? Or anything. Or just stop making the technology altogether. I got my internet hardwired, and they acted like I was from another planet and a crazy person that came in a time travel machine. Like, oh, you want hardwired internet? That's so insanely old. Like, why would you want that? Why can't you just have Wi-Fi? It's everywhere anyway. And so they're not even really making that a possibility, and they'll just discontinue the older technology the same way they've discontinued, you know, cassette tapes for discs and stuff like that. And once you start doing that, you can't really go back. I mean, you kind of can, but if they just stop offering you the older versions and they make it to where this is your only option, then that's your only option. And just by the way, the guy who wrote this, Neil Sahota, he's an IBM master inventor, but he's also a United Nations artificial intelligence subject matter expert. United Nations artificial intelligence subject matter expert. If you guys only understood the philosophy of UNESCO and the way this all plays in, it is kind of completely insane, the world we're living in today. We're at the precipice of this becoming the way society is. They're going to incrementally bring this in until, if you want to participate in society, having this brain interface will be like having a phone today. You won't be able to be a participating, buying and selling member of society without this interface. This is where it's going, and they're moving it in bit by bit, and they say so right here. I don't understand how people can get so wrapped up in the news of the day, or like whatever random politician is doing whatever sex scandal, and like, oh, he did some things back when he was a teenager. Yeah, he probably sucks. They all do. They all suck. They continue to all suck. That stuff never changes. This right here, this is changing. And it's changing all around us right now, and it's going to affect every single person in society. And we are going to come to a place of having to make a decision.
Now, you got to decide how much you're willing to give up. How much of your intellectual independence.
How far are you willing to go down this transhumanist road before you are not a human being anymore because you have irreparably changed yourself with this technology? How far are you willing to go?
I think human beings are important, but I think the whole intelligence of the universe is important, including radically transhuman things that may go far beyond anything we can understand now.
When you start merging with technology and putting things in your brain that change the way that you function all together and communicate and everything, there's only one place that goes. You will no longer be a human being. Been asking this question for video after video. When do we stop being human anymore? And they're laying it out right here. And they're saying that these kinds of technologies are going to be rolled out in the next 10 years. I would say if they're telling us that now, it means they already have it. And there are probably a lot of people very high up the chain who've already got this.
Mm-hmm. Yo. What's up, bro? Yeah, I need that. Yeah. You about to come through now? Alright, over here.
Going on. This is going to change society forever. It is going to split humanity into two. Because there will be the people who do this, and there will be probably a much smaller group of people who don't. And we're all going to have to make a choice.
But the transhumanism is the future of connectedness. It is technology as an extension of ourselves.
That we're going to increasingly merge with these technologies. They will go inside our brains. They'll connect our brain to the cloud.
For those who embrace these concepts, want to upload their minds and fuse with AGIs, the point of all these physics speculations is just the sky is not even the limit. It's, as Benja thought, it's going to be far beyond what we can comprehend. There's a lot of possibilities out there. My hope is that if there are human beings who post-singularity want to remain in the classic legacy human form with all this meat and hair and all these cognitive limitations, my hope is that these humans will be permitted to do so, just as we now have ants and bacteria swarming around the earth.
You know what I told my kids? Don't put anything in your brain.
If you haven't activated Ecwid's Facebook Shop feature, you may be leaving money on the table. Ecwid merchants see a 15% average increase in their revenue when they activate this awesome feature. It only takes a couple minutes to...
I know what some of you are automatically thinking, a video about Facebook, who cares? But just stick with me for a minute. Just hold on. Facebook has swelled to the point where they have more than 2 billion users a month and growing. That's a large, significant chunk of the planet. The average person spends 50 minutes a day on Facebook every day. That's 6 hours a week. And I'm pretty sure that number is also growing. I personally would love to dump Facebook, but it remains a place where we can easily share our work, so that is why we stay on it. We have minimal interaction on Facebook. And people get mad because we don't check our messages and we don't do all this stuff. Because we know what Facebook is, and I'm about to explain to you what it is. But even if I did dump Facebook at this point, it's affecting our lives anyway, and I'm going to give you one small example. We know several couples who are right now expecting babies, and one of those couples only announced it on Facebook to friends and family, so if we didn't get on Facebook that day or we didn't go check on their thing, we would not know. And we didn't know, and all these months went by, missed the baby shower, all that kind of stuff, because I don't do Facebook really. And so we just didn't know. So it's getting to the point now where Facebook is affecting our lives because we don't use it. Because so many other people do. Do you see what I'm saying? Well, now it's all coming out in everyone's face, probably because at this point, it's not going to change anything anyways. But you have these high-ranking Facebook officials, including co-creator Sean Parker, telling everybody flat out, in not mincing words at all, people are literally being programmed by Facebook. First, we have Parker. Just, you know what, just listen to this.
And they would say, you know, I'm not on social media. And I would say, okay, you know, you will be. And then they would say, no, I value my real life interactions. I value the moment. I value presence, and I value intimacy. And I would say, well, you're a conscientious objector. That's okay. You don't have to participate, but, you know, we'll get you eventually. and like, I don't know if I really understood the consequences of what I was saying. Because the unintended consequences of a network when it grows to 1 billion or 2 billion people, and it literally changes your relationship with society, with each other, with it probably interferes with productivity in weird ways. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them to really understand it, that thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, you know, more likes and comments. And it's a social validation feedback loop. I mean, it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
It bears repeating. He's saying Facebook puts people into a social validation feedback loop, a dopamine-driven social validation feedback loop. It has a reaction with people's brains that changes the way that they interact. Not only that, but he went on to say they did it consciously.
And I think that the inventors, creators, you know, and it's me, it's Mark, it's Kevin Systrom at Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
That's right. They knew they were doing this to people, and they did it anyways.
We need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while. It's a social validation feedback loop. Understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
And he's just telling everyone. I guess maybe he's assuaging his guilt. I don't know. But they did this to people on purpose. A few weeks after Parker made his statement, you have this guy, whose name I'm probably going to butcher, unfortunately, Chamath Palihapitiya? Does that sound right? Palihapitiya. He worked on Facebook from 2005 to 2011 and ended up with the title Vice President of User Growth. And he came out after Sean Parker came out, and he doubled down on what Parker said, saying, quote, I think we've created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. Direct quote.
I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of like there probably aren't any really bad unintended consequences. I think in the back, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are.
But hold on, we gotta finish listening to this guy.
The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem.
These are not just innocuous pastimes. That's the thing. People just think this is a way to spend their time. It's not, and they're telling you straight up. He continued.
We are in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other.
Have you ever tried to talk to a person when they're on Facebook or Twitter? You can't. It's like the person's not really there. They're physically there, you can see them, but mentally, there might as well be a gone fishing sign across their forehead. They're not there. And it's getting worse. It's like people are just disappearing.
And I don't have a good solution. My solution is I just don't use these tools anymore. I haven't for years. My Facebook feed, I've posted maybe 2 times in 7 years. 3 times, 5 times. It's less than 10. And it's weird. I guess I kind of just innately didn't want to get programmed. But everybody else has to soul search a little bit more about what you're willing to do, because your behaviors, you don't realize it, but you are being programmed.
So this is now 2 high-ranking Facebook officials, including the guy who co-created it, saying this is meant to program people.
Now you got to decide how much you're willing to give up, how much of your intellectual independence. And don't think, oh yeah, not me, I'm a genius, I'm at Stanford. You're probably the most likely to fall for it. Because you were checkboxing your whole life. No offense, guys.
None taken. Look at this man's face. These people are laughing at him like this is a funny joke. He is not kidding. He's serious. He's been serious this whole time. And these people out in the audience are just like, ha ha ha, Facebook. They're totally, it's going over. It's like right over their head like an airplane. Just, they're missing it. They're not obviously getting it, what he's trying to tell them here. And he's being pretty straightforward, actually. And when he talked about his kids, you know what he told the Stanford crowd?
I can control my decisions, which is I don't use this shit. I can control my kids' decisions, which is they're not allowed to use this shit.
Straight up, my kids are not allowed to use it. And this is a good point that everyone needs to understand. Because I think that even the people who realize Facebook is bad and they call it spy book and they say, oh, they just want to get all your information. That is true. Parker said they just want to keep you on there as long as possible so you'll give up as much information about yourself as possible. Right? But he refers to himself as a hacker. He says a hacker like me is exploiting your psychology or whatever. But what does he really mean? He says it in a real strange way. But what does that actually mean when you think about what the words that are actually coming out of this guy's mouth? He's a hacker. What is it that he's hacking if he's exploiting human psychology?
They're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
He's hacking you, and he's telling everyone that's what they did. They hacked us. And he's admitting it. It's pretty amazing, actually. You're not just giving something out to Facebook, you're also getting something back. That's how a feedback loop works. So it's not just you giving up all of your personal information and what you had for breakfast today. Something else is coming back to you. And that's the programming. A lot of people are unaware of how programming works or why they call it programming. But they mean it literally. In one of the first articles I wrote at True Stream Media back in 2013, back when we had time to keep up with the website and we weren't trying to finish this film, I ran down how this man named Herbert Krugman, who worked at General Electric, he was the corporate manager of public opinion research there. He did a bunch of studies in the late 60s on the effect of television programming, because they also call television remember they called it TV program, television programming. In these studies, he looked at what this programming does to people's brains when they watch it. And he had a paper titled, The Impact of Television Advertising, Learning Without Involvement. Learning without involvement. And he said, quote, there's a myth in the advertising world that viewers will forget your message if you don't repeat your advertising often enough. It is this myth that supports many large advertising expenditures. I would rather say that the public comes closer to forgetting nothing they have seen on TV. They just put it out of their minds until and unless it has some use. And then the response to the commercial continues.
I'm sorry, Dave.
So once you've experienced something, whether it's on a movie screen, a TV screen, a computer screen, a smartphone screen, your brain isn't just desensitized to that information. You have now effectively learned that information.
This is the construct.
And maybe not consciously, but your brain remembers that information forever. So Why programming? Well, it seems to me that it works like this. Your brain doesn't just process all of the information coming in from your senses and then use the sum of all that information taken in to make decisions and react to the reality around you on a continuous basis all day long. But when it makes those decisions for you, your brain also is now filtering through everything you've seen on TV and movies, on the news, and whatever effect, conscious or subconsciously, that information has had on you personally. I think this is part of why people have such bad relationships, because they think that their relationship is supposed to be like what it is on TV. And so they fight about things that probably have nothing to do with their actual real life. It's based on their perception that they now have been programmed with by watching, I don't know, whatever, romantic comedies or soap operas or whatever. I'm trying to just explain in a very basic sense programming, so that when we hear somebody like Sean Parker say Facebook is programming us, we kind of have at least a basic idea of what he's saying. This concept that I'm talking about is what makes technologically driven propaganda especially effective, because we're doing it to ourselves. And let's face it, the majority of our society, like I said, gets a whole lot of their opinions fed to them by the TV and by the internet now, and places like Facebook. Here's an example specifically Facebook related. So on my Facebook wall in recent weeks, I've noticed that it goes through peculiar phases. For example, after the last mass shooting, we just keep having all these mass shootings. I can't even keep it straight how many mass shootings we've had now, but after the last mass shooting, I noticed there were a whole bunch of posts, sponsored and otherwise, promoting gun control. Even though I know for a fact that people I'm friends with, the core group of people on there, are constitutionalists at the very least, libertarians, voluntary anarchists, people who do not agree the government should limit the Second Amendment rights. So why is that stuff showing up on there? I think it's because I posted something about gun control and how they're using all of these things to push gun control. Another week, it was a bunch of posts just generally ragging on conspiracy theorists and hoaxers and trying to conflate the term false flag with the word hoax and all this kind of stuff, and basically pushing the idea that anyone who discusses false flags is a tinfoil nut job. There was another week where I definitely posted something about pet vaccines, and then all of a sudden on my home wall the next day, I had all these posts about crazy anti-vaxxers. In this way, it really seems to me that at the very least, Facebook is being used to correct people's politically incorrect opinions, based on whatever the agenda of the system is. And it's not just doing that. According to Sean Parker, it's merging it with a Pavlovian conditioned response through a dopamine-driven social validation feedback loop. Again, 2 billion people a month use this, and the average person spends 6 hours a week on it. So that's 6 hours a week of social programming.
Bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want.
And if you don't see what I'm trying to say at this point, I'm going to go ahead and reiterate again, as I've said in past videos, that Facebook has admitted to carrying out social research on its users.
Facebook secretly conducted a massive psychological experiment on nearly 700,000 users,
which is part of what happens when you sign up for Facebook. You give your consent to being part of these things. It's buried in the user agreement. You automatically opt in to being a guinea pig for Facebook's social research, and they don't have to tell you first when they're going to do something. They just do it.
Every user essentially grants the social network permission to conduct these kinds of experiments when they create their accounts.
If you're using Facebook, you're part of that. You don't have a say. You cannot opt out. There's no opting out. Because besides just getting all of this information on everyone, that's also just the point of Facebook. And they've done these studies, and they've admitted, and they've released it to the public, and they've said, look, we found we can turn people's moods up and down by purposefully loading your Facebook wall with either good or bad news. If they fill someone's wall with positive information, it'll garner a positive response from the user, right? But conversely, if they put a bunch of negative stuff on there that upsets you, it's going to make you upset and put you in a bad mood, and then the stuff you post is going to be negative stuff. Which, again, even that might not seem like a big deal to some people, but you need to think about it in terms of 2 billion people are using this a month. and many of them are using it for 6 hours a week. And I guess that'd be bad enough by itself. To me, by itself, that's bad enough. Okay, that is bad enough if Facebook stays in its current form. Now, add the fact that Facebook hired former Google and DARPA agent Regina Dugan, who came out last year. She was hired for their top secret Building 8 project. Well, she came out last year and announced what that is. Facebook is attempting to create a mind-reading device so its users can think their Facebook posts directly into the platform without having to type anything.
So what if you could type directly from your brain? It sounds impossible, but it's closer than you may realize. Now, to be clear, we are not talking about decoding your random thoughts. That might be more than any of us care to know. We're talking about decoding those words, the ones you've already decided to share, by sending them to the speech center of your brain. In a few years' time, we expect to demonstrate a real-time silent speech system capable of delivering 100 words per minute.
So tell me that's not like a cross between the Borg.
Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
And Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and that scene out of SpongeBob movie where they put the mind control bucket helmets on everyone. Which, I get it, I use these clips all the time, guys, but you know what, I only show these clips so much on this channel because it's just so fitting to what is actually happening right now. This is the reality that we are now living in. And now they're just
Alright guys, I'm about to get out of here. Appreciate y'all hanging out, chilling with me. Made a lot of progress on this piece. Still got a good bit to go, but it's more than halfway done. So stay on the lookout for this and some more projects coming up soon. Peace.